Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 250. I am your host, Michael. Sorry for beginning of the show so late. Was on another chat, having some technical issues on my again. Again, my apologies. Joining me on the show this evening, Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing, both from Truth and Facts Sports, as well as Three Kings Boxing, as well as Gus from Corruption in Boxing. What's going on, fellas?
Good evening.
Hey, what's going on, man?
For those who are new, Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, blog, as well as podcast discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we'll talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all the information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. That is the link. Check the right of the blog page. You will find links to where to find us all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and whatnot, as well as to find the podcast on all available platforms that carry podcasts, including iTunes, Spotify, Mixcloud, Player FM, and the like. Also have the links to the donate button. Got a Cash Me and PayPal account. Please let donation be the best nation. Not most things are not free, including the production of this podcast. So yeah, 50 cents, a dollar, $5, $10, whatever you can spare. Please shoot some coin over Pound for Pound Box Report. Let's get the show started this evening. Going to start the show recapping what went down in Vegas, specifically starting off, with the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Daniel Jacobs. Alvarez winning by unanimous decision. A little bit closer than the scorecards had it. They had it 115, 113 on two of the judges' scorecards. I think it was 116, 12 on the third. I had it 16-12. And I'll go to you first, Gus, because you joined us from overseas. I know you can't be on here long. I know you're tired again. My apologies. And then you can follow up, Bo. If you saw the fight, for me, it just last week I pondered whether the Jacobs that we saw against Golovkin was that just a one-off. Will we ever see that kind of Jacobs again? Turns out it wasn't. To me, Canelo always showed himself to be a step ahead. I didn't like how Jacobs started the fight. He looked slow to me. He seemed surprised at the head movement of Canelo, that he wasn't able to hit him as often as he thought he would. Canelo, for his part, he just basically kept it cool, kept it professional. To me, he didn't have to do anything extravagant. He just showed he was just a class above throughout the fight. Your thoughts, Gus?
Mike, the pro Jacobs panelists, all of the publicists and the media, they have just endeavored to sort of infiltrate into our minds for a number of years that Jacobs is one of the most athletic fighters, in the sport of boxing. An aspect that I never really comprehend and certainly don't agree. His joints and his cartilages must be constructed from solid gold because he is unable to change levels. I don't think he can bend at the waist, and he certainly can't bend his knees. He's a very rigid, erratic boxer. I don't see any clean, effective punches. I see a lot of wild slaps. I see a fighter who was more than happy with the sufficient compensation that he received from the fight. Now, I don't have any problems with him contravening Canelo's contract stipulation because Alvarez has got the audacity of this motherfucker to think that he's bigger than boxing. Not only impose your own check weights, Canelo weights, but also these contractual stipulations as well. So I have no problems with Jacobs saying, fuck you, paying whatever fine he did. If you're not technically breaking any rules, then you got to try and get whatever advantages you can. But Jacobs was dehydrated at the weigh-in, and he was still badly weight drawn even during the fight night. You could see him in the first round going for that Gatorade. He didn't look right, but that doesn't matter because he didn't want to engage. He didn't really do anything for the first 7, 8 rounds. And Canelo, conversely, Mike, I don't see anything elite with this guy. I don't even think he's the best Mexican fighter. He was just loading up with that left hand over and over. And the two of them in combination, their punch stats, their Their power punches were down to what, 20-25%. Now, okay, Canelo has good defense, which can negate Danny's offense to a certain extent, but I didn't see any precision combination punching from Alvarez at the ranges where, he's more adept to fighting. He didn't do anything during the first part of the fight. He was just chasing Jacobs around the ring. Uh, to me, Mike, it was just an overhyped event. You know, the zone just blew smoke on this event. It was an easy prediction from a speculative perspective, so I can't be overcritical. Very easy fight to call. Jacobs was not really going to get the fight on the cards. I thought it was lackluster, and to be honest, Mike, I was bored after 5 rounds. I didn't even watch the live event. I just turned it off, but I went back and watched it properly. But I wasn't entertained.
The quote, the boredom that you felt, Gus, was felt by. I saw that similar attitude throughout boxing Twitter as the fight was going on. I'll go to you, Bo. You talked about it with 2K on Prodigy of Boxing Talk on his channel for Three Kings Boxing. I want your assessment here of what went down regarding Canelo's win. Do you share Gus's general thoughts about both Jacobs and Canelo? Do you have a different take?
I have a different take. Some of the things that he said, he was right. I think that as far as people being bored with it, Golden Boy and them, kind of blowing smoke on this, they did a very good job of promoting, which is what they do. They did a very good job of promoting. Jacobs is at best a B minus level fighter. I referenced this on the Three Kings Boxing podcast. I said Daniel Jacobs is like this era's version of Fernando Vargas, meaning that he'll win titles, but he'll never be none of the top guys, right? And that was the thing with Fernando Vargas. He couldn't beat the De La Hoyas and the Trinidads and the Mosleys, and but I think what it was with Jacobs was, like you, I think a lot of people thought that performance against Golovkin, he could recapture that performance. A lot of people, and I've criticized this. I've said this. I said that for whatever reason, when he got with the zone, there was a regression in him. Like after fighting Canelo, after fighting Golovkin, what I saw in that performance, I was hoping to see a Daniel Jacobs that would, when you put less of opponents in there with him, like the Seleckis and all that, he just, he run them over. Instead, that wasn't the case. So, but I thought at least for this fight, he would rise to the occasion like he did with Golovkin. He knew it was big. I do share Gus's sentiments as far as him saying, man, fuck this. Fuck that return weigh-in shit. I'm not violating them. Fuck out of here with that shit. I definitely agree with him on that. I disagree with him on about Canelo. Listen, Canelo, in my opinion, he is an elite level fighter. Canelo's ring IQ has finally caught up with his skill set. That's what's making him dangerous. You see him learning, and you see the progression from him in every fight. I think his defense not only shocked Daniel Jacobs, I think it shocked a lot of people, because Canelo normally is known as a flat foot fighter. But for this fight, from round one, did take the air out of the balloon, because Daniel Jacobs was throwing slapping shots, and you see Canelo moving, and I'm screaming at Jacobs, okay, well, he's moving his head. Stop going to the boy's head and go to his fucking body. Stop. Go to his body, slow him down. So, yeah, a lot of people, I think, right after the first round or the second round, and then Jacobs didn't start coming on until later. I had it like you, 116, 112, which is 8-4. I think my partner had it 9-3, which isn't 9-3. For people, there were people out here and saying that Jacobs was robbed. I don't know what you're talking about. No, he was not. It was just an overall. It was a good performance by Canelo, but a very disappointing performance by Daniel Jacobs, because he should have came a fight like this. He should have came out. No, like you said, you're not going to win on the scorecard. He should have came out guns blazing. He should have came out throwing. He should have came out throwing. He should have came out doing. He should have came out just overall being the fighter that knows that, hey, I'm fighting. Like, he didn't fight as he was the underdog, in my honest opinion. He fought like he was, in cruise control, and then turned it on later on. And that ultimately what cost him. So I was more excited with what I saw on the undercard, which I guess we're going to talk about, than the actual main event, Mike.
I'll go to you, Jacob. Were you more disappointed in what you saw from Jacobs? More impressed by what you saw from Canelo, or did you basically get what you expected from this fight?
No, I didn't get what I expected. I mean, the decision, it's pretty much what I expected as far as, Canelo winning a decision. I did pick Jacobs to win. I thought he was going to put it together. So just a few things, a lot of good points touched on by Gus and Bo. My whole issue more so with Jacobs is that, you fight supposedly to get to this level and a chance to become a unified champion. And you say to everybody, how important it is, and it's the biggest fight of your life. But I just don't. It seems like a lot of the boxers today, at least at the more popular boxers, they don't fight like they fight like basically not to get like knocked out or get embarrassed. They don't take any chances or any risks when they know that they have to do that in order to win certain fights. I think great boxers are remembered for taking the risks and letting it all hang out. And I didn't feel that Jacobs did that. Even in his corner, he was told multiple times, like, don't just do enough. We don't want to walk away from this saying, hey, we could have done a little bit more, or if we would have done a little bit more, we could get this victory. Let your hands go, go after it. And the whole thing with the weight thing, that kind of baffled me, because he did that against Golovkin, so he's blown through the weight before, but I would think that's to get an advantage, a size of it. He's already the bigger guy, but to get a size advantage. But he's backing up like almost the whole fight. He wasn't putting his body on Canelo, and doing those things. And it's like, well, why have the size advantage if you're not going to use it? If you're not going to mix it up or lean on him and like try to tire him out? Because Canelo, I can't. I'm not a Canelo fan, but I will admit he has gotten better in a lot of the aspects of his game. So I'll give him credit for that. But he's to me, he's beatable. I just don't know what these guys are afraid of. They're I don't know what it is. They're just afraid to take that step. And in this fight, Jacobs, when Canelo's moving his head and doing the head movement thing, kind of like Bo was saying, go aim for his chest, aim for his body. These people that try to headhunt and try to catch these guys, it's a bad strategy. And once it happens the first time, you don't keep on doing the same thing over and over. But Jacobs did do some body work, but it was a lot of slapping punches and a lot of behind it. And even that punch he landed in the 9th round, I think it was the 9th round. Canelo kind of, I noticed that he's able to kind of roll with punches. He's kind of, he does that. He kind of tries to be like Floyd and do the shoulder thing, but he turns his head, a lot to kind of like take the impact off the punches. So I don't think it really did anything. But even it was a solid punch that he landed, but Jacobs didn't even follow it up. It's like that was the door was open for him to mix it up, and he didn't do it. So I was disappointed with Jacobs the most. I definitely thought he lost the fight. Kind of had it like how you guys said, like maybe give him 3 or 4 rounds. But with Canelo, kind of hit on Gus's point. You say that guy talks a lot of shit about like how he's the best and he's the he has this power and this knockout and stuff, but I don't think he fights like that. He doesn't fight like he has all this power, all this all the stuff that he says he's going to do. So that part makes me mad, because I don't like boxers talking about what they're going to do, and then when it comes fight night, they don't do it. Yeah, you can go knock out Rocky Fielding, who's a fucking chump. I hate to say it, he's a chump. You know, he
I agree
shouldn't
with
even
that.
have that belt. He shouldn't even have that belt. But you know, if he ever does a fight with like a Callum Smith or something like that, I think he's gonna get worked. But you know, I'm sure we're gonna talk about the future of Canelo. But overall, it was a disappointing like event, our main event.
Before we go to future here, reading what each of you guys said about Daniel Jacobs, can an argument be made here that he settled? In short, he kind of cashed out here. He fought this fight just for the cash out.
Yes.
Oh, most definitely, Mike. I mean, you can tell that by the way he looked in that fight. You know what he got. Think about this: he skipped the weigh-in, cost him $1 million, and he still walked away with 10. So yeah.
You say yes, Gus?
Yeah, simple as that, Mike. Yes.
You're not getting any arguments from us, so I think the argument can be made.
So let's go future here for Canelo. Triple G, who earlier Saturday announced that he's switching trainers, going to be trained by Jonathan Banks, was in the building. Demetrius Andrade was in the building.
Mike.
I think we lost him.
Yeah. I know he's Dimitri Andre was there. There was also reports about mentioning Rocky Fielding as a possible opponent, man. I mean, who would you guys like to see him fight? I would like to see him go for undisputed. But we all know they are moving him a Pacific way. Gus, go ahead, man. Who would you like to see Canelo fight next?
Oh, you know, the middleweight division, boys, it's just piss poor for me. The fight I always wanted, I felt there was one fighter potentially who had the ability, if he was motivated, if he was fit, and that was Billy Joe Saunders. He had the potential to frustrate and outbox. That's the way you beat Alvarez. You know, you're not going to knock him out. You're not going to beat him at that short range. You're not going to exchange with him. You have to outbox him, force him to turn, take advantage of his flat-footed lack of ability. Saunders was, I felt, the only person who can do that, but he's fucked
Well,
up his own
they
career for whatever
Frank
reason.
Warren just called him out about that. They called him out. Of Warren and Billy Joe Saunders called Canelo out about not trying to fight Billy Joe.
Boy, I can write in, Saunders' career. I mean, I have a little bit of sympathy for him here and there, but largely, it's within his own power. He's not disciplined out of the ring. It's definitely his own volition. There's no one else to blame but him.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
You
I
know,
lost connection there.
you know,
Sticking to Saunders. I used to think in like the comparison between Saunders and Fury because of their out of the ring comments and antics. I used to think that Fury, particularly in the layoff, he was the kind of crazy one here, for lack of a better word. But since his comeback, he seems to be on it physically and mentally. It's Saunders who I have bigger questions about. What has he done since David Lemieux other than run his mouth?
Exactly, Mike. And the thing is, you cannot blame Frank Warren or whether he's been poorly managed. Look at what Frank Warren has done. He's given him so many chances, and he's just got him a world title shot at 168 in his first fight. So how can you attach any blame to Frank Warren? He's actually, believed in him, put a lot of money in him. I remember he postponed a fight in Cardiff so that Billy Joe Saunders could keep his belt. Otherwise, he would have lost it on the scale. So Frank has actually done very well for him, but he's not reciprocated. A little bit unlucky with that performance enhancing, because I've talked about that in detail. I have a great deal of sympathy for that. I felt the allegations were incorrect. The levels I felt were consistent with the sort of medication that you can get over the counter in the UK. And scientifically, I even broke it down on my channel. So that was a bit of an unlucky episode, but even still, Mike, there's no. He had a chance of fighting Andre after that, but He couldn't get down to that weight, fucked around, out of the ring, making poor, careless decisions. So he's fucked his own career up, Mike. I got no sympathy for him anymore.
Jacobs, man, what do you want to see Canelo do next?
Lose, but and that's not the question, I don't think. But I think.
Well, tell us how you really feel, Daniel.
Yeah, I think.
tell us how you really feel.
I think so. He's not going to fight Billy Joe Saunders because he doesn't have a belt. There's nothing in it for him to do that, and it is a dangerous fight. I do think that Saunders possesses things that would give Canelo trouble. I don't think it's going to be a Golovkin 3. Not yet. I think he with this deal that he has with the Zone, I think was it 11 fights in 5 years? So he can get that down the line. We know Golovkin's going to be around for at least another 4 or 5 fights because of his deal.
Andrade?
So, no, Golovkin.
I mean, I'm just thinking. You think you're going to fight Andrade?
Well, I'm going through the list right now. So,
Okay.
Andrade, I think that's another dangerous fight for him. To Gus's point, I think he can potentially outbox Canelo, and he does have the belt. So and he's with the Zone too, I believe. So there is that fight. But the rumblings that I'm hearing, and I know this is going to sound crazy, and I know you guys have probably heard it, but is that they're going to offer $20 million for a Spence fight, for Spence to come up to middleweight to fight him.
Oh, I
Earl
heard
already
it.
said that 20 million is not enough. At the expo, I think it was Ellie Setback or one of them guys talked to him, and we was there, and Earl was like, "No, $20 million is not enough for me to fight Canelo."
Well, what does he want? That's a lot of money. And Spence is a big welterweight. I mean, I don't think he would have any problem making the weight. And it would be that'd be a big event, But I mean, I would prefer that Canelo fights Andrade, but
I would be mad if that fight was made.
I would be too, but I mean, stranger things have happened in boxing. Money talks.
Look.
They could do it in Texas too. You got Spence's crowd
I was
there.
just going to say they do that in Texas.
I don't
filling
care.
up Dallas Stadium, 50,000 people easy.
I don't care. Look, finish the business with the guys in your division. Bottom line, finish the business with the guys in your division. Spence has business with Crawford, with Porter, Garcia, and whatnot at 47. Canelo got business at 160. You finish that first before you fight each other.
Yeah, but Canelo's already gone up. He literally won the middleweight belt and he went up to super middleweight to fight for a belt. He literally did that in the second or the first fight after he won. So I can't remember who said it. I think it was Gus. Canelo doesn't play. Canelo thinks he is bigger than boxing. He plays by his own rules. He knows he's the draw, so he just does whatever the fuck he wants. So nobody's gonna tell him what to do. He knows he has that power. Unfortunately.
I think
it's a little bit deeper than that.
I wouldn't mind seeing Canelo and Golovkin because I'm curious to see what this new unhinged Golovkin is, who effectively has said "F you" to the he's it may be just a personal sort of indiscretion he has, but he's obviously thinking that he's been fucked by the system so much now, and this new sort of ruthless Golovkin could potentially be it's an interesting sort of proposition. So because there's nothing else in the division, I think Demetrius Andrade is second only to Robert Easter as the poorest fighter in any of the 17 weight classes. So I wouldn't mind seeing a new sort of unhinged Golovkin and Alvarez again, if that's the only thing that's available.
Again, I want to see fighters finish business where they're at, particularly Spence. As long as that potential fight with Crawford is out there, that's what should be on his mind first and foremost. Point blank period.
Well, I agree, but Mike, you're talking about you're talking about an era that we live in where if you make a fight, and from a financial standpoint, it's a blockbuster. You have fans, you have pundits, you have media outlets that will go along with that narrative. Like, man, this is a big fight because look at the amount of money and all of that. It's like we don't live in the era where people push guys to do that. We live in the era where they're celebrated by the achievements from the financial side instead of the achievements and accomplishments from being in the ring side. You know, and that's just there. I mean, think like Canelo Alvarez right now could drop all the belts, say "fuck all y'all, I want the belts no more," and still have the biggest fight with the biggest draw in all the boxing, no belts.
Yeah,
Yes.
fair enough. Fair enough. In short, I'm just an old school fuddy duddy, and this is 2019 boxing. The parameters
I
have
agree with
changed.
you. I agree with you. I think looking to fight Earl Spence is telling me you've already conceded that you can't beat Boo Andrade. Remember, he didn't even want to fight Boo Andrade when he was Andrade's mandatory 154.
Right.
You know,
I know the
And
one
plus,
fighter he's not going to. I know the one fighter Canelo's not going to fight.
Charlo.
who was that? Carlos
There you
Smith?
go, Charlo,
Oh,
and that's
Charlo.
on
Oh, yeah.
Charlo.
Yeah.
But that's on Charlo, so that's
That's
on
on
him.
Charlo. He needs to sign with his own. You know,
Exactly.
get that fight.
Exactly. Let's
Yeah.
move on.
Spence needs to stay at 147. He's got no punching power to trouble Alvarez. None.
Actually, that's true. Think about Canelo. He could take a hell of a shot. I don't know if Spence could hurt him. Let's move on to talk about other main fight on the card. I'm going back to you, Bo. We haven't talked much about Vergil Ortiz here on Pound for Pound Box Report. Rising junior welterweight prospect contender. He fought Mauricio Herrera, had his way with him and blew him out. I think round 3 or 4. Herrera is not the fighter he was, but still it was impressive the way Ortiz coolly destroyed him. Uh, Look, I know Ryan Garcia gets all the pub on on Golden Boy in terms of prospects and whatnot, but and I said this on Twitter, Vergil Ortiz is the best prospect by far. Um, your thoughts on what you saw from him and in terms of his potential at 140, 147, which is really loaded with up and coming prospects and contenders.
You know, you hit on something about that. Is you have to understand Vergil Ortiz don't fit, and I'm not trying to vilify Oscar for this, but he don't fit that mold of the pretty boy Mexican that Oscar seems to be. Like cats like Jojo Diaz and Ryan Garcia and what's the other dude in that camp? I can't think of him right now. No, you got Jojo Diaz, Ryan Garcia, you got Canelo. God, the name escaping me, man. When I hear it, it'll come back. But he presents that, oh man, that pretty boy look. Ortiz doesn't fit that mold. Ortiz is rough, grimy, tattooed up, and he comes in there to fight. And Herrera isn't the same Herrera that we've seen before. But again, I say this all the time. When you realize a guy shouldn't be in there with you, get him out of there. And that's exactly what he did. He showed me that, okay, once he was able to figure him out, once he was able to realize what was in front of him, once he was able to make the adjustment, he pretty much ran Herrera down in impressive fashion. And Herrera, at the end of the day, never been knocked out. He's 35 years old, so he's still a good name to have on your resume. And I think Ortiz, out of all the prospects you're talking about, shows the higher amount of upside to him. Here's a kid, shows good boxing skills, makes some adjustment, excellent power in both hands, especially that right hand. And you can definitely see again the level of progression. So I like what I saw. Now, of course, I would like to see him do it against now that you don't go backwards. Now you didn't get in there with Herrera, you're moving from prospect to contender. Now fight a top 20 guy or a top 15 guy. Fight for maybe a minor title, like a feature box or whatever the case is. Start making those moves because the reality is right now he's not even a featured name when you say Golden. Like nobody even knows this guy's with Golden Boy. So he's got to start making moves to come out of the shadow of all these other dudes below him, but he has higher potential than.
I'll go to you, Gus, and then you can follow up, Jacob. Your thoughts about Ortiz. Hadn't talked about him much here, as I said earlier, but I believe I've heard you talk about him
Yeah,
on your channel, and I know you think very highly of him. Your thoughts on Ortiz?
yeah. I had him in a. I did a video, a 5-man sort of prospects. I had the minimum strawweight fighter from Japan that you sort of recommended to me. I had a Subriel Matisse from Puerto Rico. I had Israel Madrimov from Uzbekistan, who's a middleweight, real good power puncher. A Vergil Ortiz and Shakram Girsov as well from Uzbekistan. So he did sort of hit my radar, seeing him on sort of Ring TV, a few fights. Um, very good composure for a power puncher, and obviously coming up in weight from 140 to 147 and being the first person to stop, Mauricio, is a good achievement. But you've got to put it in perspective, as Bo mentioned. Mauricio has seen better days now, and we know Mike. He likes to slam beers in between fights as well. So that's not really going to sustain his boxing career. So the only other guy who did that to Herrera was another very good fighter who has just disappeared off the radar, and that was Frankie Gomez. A guy I talked so much about. So excited when he moved from after medaling in sort of Milan at the World Championships that just couldn't, poorly managed outside of the ring, so he's just fucked his boxing career up. So Herrera was
Was
always
that
on
the
the
guy that kept on
decline.
missing weight all the time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, that was him.
yeah, yeah. Very talented fighter, but
He reminded me of Juan. What's that? I think they didn't get him was Juan Gomez, or Juan Diaz, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, one
Baby
Diaz, yeah.
Bull? Baby Bull?
No, I got it. I'm gonna look up his name. I can't remember the name. There was another guy that had that same issue that Frankie Gomez had.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember his name right now.
Yeah, it was like Juan something. Yeah, I can't remember it though. Yeah.
Yeah, his name escapes me. I'll
A
remember it,
boxer,
but
a boxer named Juan, are you sure?
I can't remember offhand. But I know who Bo's talking about. I can't remember his name, but continue on, Gus.
No, I mean, in short, Mike, he 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 impressed. He showed good composure. Didn't smother his shots. Very good punch accuracy. Set Herrera up beautifully. And when the opening was there to finish him, he did it ruthlessly. So very impressive stoppage. But the Golden Boy actually do work very well with their prospects now. I think they're one of the better promoters, and if they have good prospects at the same weight, they will put them together. They have no problem in doing it. So I think he's going to get plenty of good work, both in sparring and moving him up as well. Um, if he's got the power at 147, I guess the question is, does he remain there? He's keen to go back down to 140. Um, if the power is definitely carrying up, it's a better weight, better, 147 is probably the better in terms of lucrative fights. But, the 140 division, there's so many good tantalizing fights there potentially. The Josh Taylor Progress winner, you could potentially put him in with as well. So the future is definitely bright with the kid.
Indeed, indeed. Quick word on Ortiz, Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, not too much more to add. I mean, yeah, it was a faded Herrera. He's definitely on the end of his career. But what I do like about when fighters fight guys that are on the end of their career, they don't carry them for 12 rounds and do a decision. The guy has what do you call it? Killer instinct. Like he saw that his guy was hurt and he went after it and he blew him away. So that's what you're supposed to do. When somebody's not in your league, you're supposed to blow them out and move on to the next. So, you know, hats off to Gus for picking him out. But yeah, I think he seems very hungry, and I'd like to see more of him.
Indeed, indeed. I know folks are asking, what about Jojo Diaz and his fight against Fonseca? Well, I got
Very
nothing
good.
from it. I got nothing from it. I got more from the trash talk he did with Tevin Farmer than the Fonseca fight. I mean, Fonseca, uh, 26-2 coming in, but very spotty resume. A lot of guys he fought had losing records. So again, I got nothing. And I know the commentators, well, he looks so good at 130. He looks so good. Look, that's the way Diaz always looks. He always looks strong the first 2/3 of the fights. The question is, the later part of the fight, he always fades. And you're not going to get that against this guy. So the question to me remains how he looks at 130 pounds. And for me, who can he beat at 130? Who?
I think he's a very good fighter, Mike. A very exciting fighter as well. I thought he was actually a lot better in this fight.
Am I too harsh here? Jacob Bowe, and I see Daniel has joined us. Am I too harsh here on Diaz?
Not for me.
Yeah, I can't say that you were too harsh, but I will say this. I feel your criticism as far as, okay, who can he beat at 130? And the fact that, this was the guy that he fought limited competition. So this was a look good. But I will say it does feel that this move to 130 definitely helped Jojo Diaz in the aspect of, you can definitely tell he was killing himself to try to make that 126. So I think this move to 130 helped him. But, like you said, I thought it was Tekashi 6ix9ine in the ring for a minute when I saw that. What is I'm looking at? But no, I can't say that, because the reality is, when you look at one, I want to see him in there with Tevins, or if he can't get Tevin, fight Scott Quigg, or fight
rematch
Scott
with Concion. Rematch with Concion.
Yeah, there you go, rematch with Concion, or something like that. Do something like that. And then that would be a better judgment for me, because like you said, man, the guy he fought faced limited competition.
You were saying I am being too critical, huh? Gus, explain. Give your rationale. You there, Gus?
Yeah, I'm here, Mike. Yeah, man, it sounded like you want to bust a cap in his ass, Mike.
Jesus Christ, Gus!
I've seen him in his career. I saw the Russell fight, and
of course, yeah,
I see good qualities in him, but I don't see anything outstanding in him in which it's like, okay, he's a world champion. I saw the Russell fight,
Mike,
and for me, he could have won that fight. I just don't know what he did in the second half. It made no sense to me.
Mike, I don't know if you guys remember a show about maybe 18 months ago, I said that Joseph Diaz is going to be one of those fighters who is unbelievably exciting, but he's going to be in those fights where he's just not going to be able to get over the line against the elite fighters. And that's the way it's turning out. He's very good. He's very skillful, certainly at that distance as well. But very good against Russell for the earlier part of the fight, and he was just teeing off at him. So, but yeah, for the second half of the fight, his offense just, I don't know what quite happened. Russell was obviously a little bit more elusive in the second half of the fight. He wasn't sort of standing and trading. And I think the thing with this training camp, Mike, and what Diaz is beginning to sort of relay now is that he's going to have to throw a lot more punches and have to be more active over the 12 rounds. So I think he is trying to remediate some of those deficiencies that he may have been accused of in the past. I always felt that he may not have enough power at that sort of to dislodge, the elite fighters. He does load up on his punches, and he picks his punches beautifully. He's actually very good, very skillful fighter, but the power is what I have an issue with, even at 130. But look at the guys he's beaten, Mike. Jesus Rojas is a fighter I like a lot. He is one of those tough fighters that will just keep on coming all the time. And for him to get past him and, give Russell a good fight, for, half of the fight as well, it's not a bad fighter, Mike. So we'll see what happens up against better opposition. But I've still got a bit of faith in him, Mike.
Indeed. Shout out to One Media. Shout out to Fink for joining us live in the YouTube chat in the comments. We will
Yeah.
talk about Usyk. Fink, we will talk about Usyk and disappointed in that. I see Daniel, you joined us. Your quickly, I should say, your thoughts on Canelo's win over Jacobs as well as Vergil Ortiz.
All right, I'll start with Vergil Ortiz. Really good, outstanding showing. Not like I said, knocked out a guy, like knocked him completely off his rocker. Mauricio Herrera was tough to beat. Real good statement. I do feel bad for Mauricio Herrera though. Like they did point it out. Like how different would it be if he didn't get robbed in Puerto Rico against Danny Garcia?
Yeah.
Like how different would it be if he didn't get robbed against Jose Benavidez? So I do think that at the end probably this is going to be his last hurrah for Herrera. Like there's not much he can do at this career at this point. As far as for the main event, Canelo looked really, really good, as particularly defensively, particularly when it came to his head feints and just his losing the punches when Jacobs was trying to land pretty decent punches. The two biggest mistakes I think that Jacobs' camp made is that switching southpaw when he did not make any sense at the time. It did not make any sense at all. And maybe Jacobs and Rozier were planning for the Canelo that at 154, 155 tends to gas out around in the 7th round for them to turn it on. And in this fight, Canelo really started gassing out until the 9th round. And that ultimately may have cost him the fight, listening close to the scorecards. I'm not going to call it a robbery. It was a good main event. Jacobs is still, if he chooses to stay at middleweight, he'll still be considered the number 2 and number 3 middleweight, depending on what your opinion of Triple G is. When it comes to this fight with Jojo Diaz, I've always been high, like with Gus. I've been pretty high on Jojo Diaz. Like he does have really good skills as a fighter. He does throw body punches, and the main thing is going to be though with this fight. Yeah, he stopped the guy that he didn't need to be stopped. And he did it. He made the corner stop it. The problem is going to be though we have to see what happens in the second half. Is it a situation where making featherweight killed him that badly in the second half of fights, or is he a guy that unloads that well off?
This fight with Canelo and that card took place in Vegas, and that got a lot of the attention of boxing fans. Card that took place in Stockton the same night, ESPN card. Main event of that card is Artur Beterviev, excuse me. I'm going to try to pronounce his last name. Pray for me. Kalajdzic stopped him in round, I think, 4 or 5. I'll go to you, Jacob. Okay, Beterviev, he won, but I'm looking at this. He won, but just because he was more physical. He was the stronger and more powerful fighter. I'm looking at this and compare him to the other light heavyweight champions. Technical flaws all over the place, can be hit, leaves himself open a lot. And I'm like, could this guy beat Kovalev? Could this guy beat Bivol? Could this guy beat Gavastik? Could this guy beat a Marcus Brown? Based on what I saw Saturday, I question that. Your thoughts on what you saw from Beterbiev this past weekend?
Yeah, I agree with you. He's a very imposing, powerful guy, but he does leave himself open for counter shots, and he does get clipped. I mean, he got clipped in the fight with Johnson, and even in this fight, he got clipped. And I don't think he was really in danger. Kalajdzic, I don't think he's not known for like punching power and whatnot. It's kind of a linky, awkward guy, long guy. But you know, when he was going toe to toe with him, he clipped him with some good shots. And you know, maybe if he had some more power, you know, he might have put Beterviev down. You know, to the question, could he beat, you know, some of these other guys? I mean, it's boxing. I mean, it could happen. I mean, especially at these higher weights, you know, sometimes it just takes one punch, you know, one well-placed punch, and you can change the fight. I think he would have the best chance against Kovalev, because I feel like Kovalev is kind of a weaker version of himself. He's not the kind of like the killer that he was, you know, some years back. He's a little bit more calculated with his style, and especially in his last fight, the way he fought against Alvarez. But you know, I think he could potentially beat him. But the other guys, the other two guys, Glosdick and
Gvozdyk, Bivol,
Bivol.
Kovalev.
I think they might be able to beat Beterbiev. But the good news, I guess, is that, you know, all these guys I think most of these guys are signed with Top Rank, so hopefully we'll be able to see these fights and get some clarity in the division. So I mean, that there's that.
Going to open it up for everybody else here on the panel. What you saw from Beterbiev against in Stockton last weekend. How would you compare him with the other top light heavyweights in the world? A division that's arguably the best in boxing, one of the best, most would say. What would you rank Beterbiev?
I rank him very high, Mike. Now, I don't think the boxing world have seen the best of Artur Beterbiev, and because his professional career, he hasn't been able to. He has had no momentum. He's one of those fighters, unfortunately, that's just become like a perennial ring rust shedder, whether it's marred in contractual disputes or injuries, whatever. He's just not had any momentum where he can get back, you know, after a couple of months and just keep building on that. He's Mike. When he was an amateur, he was a phenomenal boxer. You know, him and Usyk fought 6 times, I believe, and he has a good victory over Usyk where he made him look ordinary. Trust me, he beat up Sergey Kovalev, and this was a boxer Kovalev who was moving around as well, and gave him a bad beating in their second fight. So he can adapt to all styles. He's a very heavy-handed bruiser, Mike. I think his power might be too much for the likes of Dmitry Bivol. Yes, he's a little bit erratic. We know about the deficiencies, whatever else, and he's getting on in age as well, Mike. But he definitely has an equalizer, Mike, and he can knock out people on the back foot as well when he's in a stationary position. So he's got a puncher's chance against pretty much everybody, but he just no momentum, Mike, and that's the one worry I have for him.
I'll go to you, Bo and Daniel. If you're back, I know you had to step out for a bit. Your thoughts on Artur Beterbiev?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You know, I'd be referring to him as like Johnny Bravo 2.0, man. We be talking about. It was Juan Guzman, the Dominican Republic fighter, Jacob. That's who I was referring. He always had trouble making weight.
Yeah.
Juan Guzman, Little Tyson is what they called him. He always had trouble making weight.
Brilliant little fighter, man.
Yeah, excellent fighter. He just couldn't control his weight, and that's what we was talking about. But you know, here's the thing, and Gus makes a very good point. Is Bivol is probably from a technical aspect a better boxer, but this isn't a situation like, for example, like and I'm not trying to pick on no fighter, but when you look at Deontay Wilder, all he has is the right hand. He doesn't display any boxing skills. Well, Beterbiev can punch, and he does display some boxing skills enough to the point where you figure, hey, if he does fight Bivol, he has some abilities to I'm not going to say keep up step for step, but do enough to where he can position himself to where that power can become a factor, as to where like Wilder has to wait for an opportunity as to versus Beterbiev, who can actually create that opportunity. So when you look at that fight with Bivol, and then the fact that Bivol is sort of passive aggressive, he doesn't step on the motor, I can see, that fight being interesting. Gavazic still fights a little bit too straight up for me. He still keeps his chin straight up after every combination and be caught in counters. So that's a good fight, right? And then of course, Gus mentioned it. I think he knocked Sergey Kovalev out in the amateurs. At the very least, I know he beat him up, and a lot of the top guys during that time Beterviev beat them. So that's intriguing. I mean, I know amateurs don't mean anything when it comes to pros. I remember the guy Gonzalez who beat both Lennox Lewis and Ridivoje, and they both.
Well, yeah, you're right. Look, the only time I've ever seen, you mentioned Usyk. The only time I've ever seen him hurt pro or amateur was by Beterviev.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on you. The fight is on YouTube.
Yeah, and you're right. So when you look at it, and he is a guy, and I say this all the time, once he got away from Yvonne Michelle, all of a sudden found his passport, and look at him, he's fighting regularly now. But he is a guy who has been stagnant because of the outside of the ring issues that he's always had. And I think that I know Gus says we haven't seen the best of him, but I think because so many of his good years were spent not fighting, we may not still be able to see the best of him, because we may still see maybe 75 or 60% of him, because I think the majority of him got left behind from not being active all the time. And of course, you know what they say, when you don't do something for a long time, you kind of forget how to do it. But I like his chances at the light heavyweight division, because any fight you look at, he has that equalizing ability. Because I was there when he fought Callum Johnson, and I thought Callum Johnson had him. I really did. I thought Callum Johnson had him. He had him hurt and everything. And, Johnson made the mistake, but the difference was in the experience, where Johnson made the mistake, but when Beterbiev got him hurt, you saw that skill set come in. So yes. You can't count him out in that light heavyweight division. I mean, any fight, any fight. The only one is from a technical aspect. Bivol is the one that I look at from because he's so technically sound that I can see him frustrating Beterbiev. But at the same time, Beterbiev does have the skill set to try to keep up with him or offset some of the things Bivol do, along with that power. And that's like, for me, I at least saw Beterbiev get hit hard and get up and keep going. I want to see, how does Bivol respond when somebody puts a good one on him.
Yeah, for those who don't know, when Gus and Bo are talking kind of stagnant Beterbiev's career, he has been in a long-running feud with former manager Yvonne Michelle, who also was the manager for Adonis Stevenson. Bit of an update here. Adonis Stevenson is recovering nicely, all things considering, to the point that he is speaking now, having conversations. I'm hearing there's going to be essentially a press conference coming up soon, in the not too distant future, where Adonis Stevenson is going to address the media. So again, continue prayers and thoughts to one of Adonis Stevenson, who's recovering quite well following the injury suffered to Gavazic. But anyway, Beterbiev was in a long contract dispute with Yvonne Michelle, signed a deal with DAZN, fought Callum Johnson on DAZN, and then all of a sudden he switches over to Top Rank. So he's been in promotional, managerial issues really for the past couple of years. And hopefully with this deal now with ESPN Top Rank, we can see him on a more consistent basis. Going to you, Daniel, quickly, your thoughts on Warren Beterbiev and how does he fit in the light heavyweight landscape?
The fight is pretty much what I expected to happen in a way. It was good. It's a good way to fight. Beterbiev did look good on it. It's tough where he actually fits, because the fight that's the obvious one to make is Kovalev. But remember, he has to deal with Anthony Yarde as his mandatory for the moment. Bivol is on the zone. And the matchup with him and Bivol would be pretty interesting, because we already know by Bivol at this point, if he doesn't feel he can knock you out within the first 3 rounds, he's not going to try. This is going to try to outbox you, and it does make some of his last performances, while still pretty good, not that exciting. Alvarez looks pretty good. Sullivan Barrera, that's a pretty decent opponent. If Marcus Brown gets back into it, Marcus Brown will be a really good fight. So it's an interesting tale when it goes to Beterbiev. The problem is going to be though is has he? We know signed with Top Rank. Has he cleared out any issues that can block a fight right now? Because like we mentioned, the obvious one is Kovalev. That's the obvious one. Those two hate each other. Those two could probably put a fight in the middle of a Siberian gulag, and the Russians will come because that's how much they hate each other. So that'll be interesting to see where it shapes up. But Beterviev has to do it now. Like remember, like he hasn't had that many fights, but he's already getting close. Like if not already, I forgot his age. I think he's on the wrong side of 30. So he has to pull the trigger now. Like he can't have these little instances where, okay, you're a champion, but you haven't fought the other guys, especially when almost all of them are your fellow countrymen. Remember, in the light heavyweight division, it's 3 Russians and a Ukrainian on top right now. With Kovalev, Beterviev, Bivol, and Vostok. And the only other thing that's stopping them is the fact that Egis Klima's clients do not like to fight each other. But as far as I know, he's not an Egis Klima's client.
I see you got your mic open and want to give a last word on this, Gus?
No.
Okay. Last fight here. Whoever wants to talk about this fight, if you please do. Jerwin Ancajas, who hasn't looked impressive in his last couple of bouts against Gonzalez. Some would argue that he not Gonzalez, but against Sultan, against Barrios, didn't look impressive. Fought his #1 contender on the undercard of the Beterviev bout, stopped his mandatory guy by the name of Funai, Japanese fighter. I'll just say briefly, this is what I expected. Funai, even though his #1 contender, based on the fights that I've seen and based on his resume, it just wasn't that impressive. It was an opportunity for Ancajas to look good. Funai, he's tough as an oak, can take a punch, but he was just getting slowly beat down and beat up by Ancajas, and ultimately he got stopped in the 7th round due to punishment. As far as I was concerned, again, he was taking a beating. Getting really consistent in there with every punch in the book, particularly over the last 3 rounds. For anyone who wants to add any further commentary, please do.
He was trying to block his left hand with his face.
Pretty much. His face and his body was becoming a human punching bag in there.
That's not it. Well, I wouldn't even consider it blocking. That he just literally just putting a sign just saying "hit me."
I was making a joke. He didn't block any of the punches. He literally, his face was there and the left hand just kept on hitting.
Yeah, I know. But I just say, like, even with the joke, I know that part. But the main thing you can say is that it's the kind of fight that Ancajas needed, as far as for him to look good, particularly coming off, like I said, that performance that Estrada had against SSR. Like I said, it puts him back in the picture, even in the periphery.
Indeed. Before we move on to the news here, a couple of comments in the chat. GM Strong, shout out to him. Shout out to One Media. Shout out to Fink for joining us. GM Strong said in our response to our commentary about our discussion about Canelo and Jacobs, he said Canelo really outclassed Jacobs. He said Jacobs tried to outbox Canelo. I wonder why he didn't go for broke when I'm seeing he's losing in the scorecards. One Media said that think there's a talent shortage at 160, and this means that Canelo by default is reigning supreme. GM Strong, he proposed an interesting fight here. He said he feels that Jarrett Hurd, who we're going to talk about later on in the show, going to move up to 160 pounds in the not too distant future. He asked thoughts on a Canelo versus Jarrett Hurd fight down the road. Your thoughts on that, fellas?
That fight won't happen because Jarrett Hurd is not with DAZN. It's the only way.
It's the same reason that Charlo doesn't happen.
Yep. Only anybody get any fight with Canelo has to do some type of deal with DAZN. So because Charlo's been sitting at the mandatory for over a year, and the WBC ain't made a move to make that fight happen. So the IBF is a little different though. They'll either you fight them or they'll strip you.
Yeah. politics aside, it would be a very interesting fight because Hurd, like, we know how big Hurd is at 154. But we also know that for the punch output that he has, his defense for the most part is pretty lacking. And you really can't have that against a guy like Canelo, who even in this fight has shown that he can evade punches pretty effectively against somebody that's naturally bigger, like in Jacobs. So Hurd would run into that situation, and who, unlike Jacobs, won't actually pay attention to his defense as much. As far as aesthetics, it would be a very interesting fight. Like I said, it's too bad that we know how Bob Arum and Al Heyman are about doing business. Oscar and Al even worse. So it's an interesting thought, though.
You echo the sentiments here, Gus. Interesting fight on paper, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, Mike, look, Jarrett Hurd there's no doubt he's going to be loyal to the PBC because he's a unified champion, so he can't complain about the way his career has been managed and the opportunities that have been presented before him. So from a political standpoint and an economic standpoint, the fight is not viable. But from a fan's perspective, that it really is a mouth-watering fight, especially two guys who are actually fantastic on the inside. Can you imagine some of the exchanges? And Jarrett Hurd has the balls to try and push, Canelo on the back foot, and maybe he's physically big and imposing enough to do so as well. But how much punishment can a guy keep sustaining before, turning a fight around? The chin is going to crack eventually. He's just taking too many punches, and Alvarez might just be a little bit too big to start, making indentations in that chin.
Indeed. Let's move on to some news here. I'll go to you on this one, both. You kind of broke, you and my brethren over at Three Kings kind of broke this story. Last week, we talked about Devin Haney signing a deal with DAZN. Well, in the immediate aftermath of that, word popped up that Haney would fight Luke Campbell for WBC title. Well, that was kind of thwarted, as the word now is that Campbell will fight one Vasily Lomachenko for that WBC title. Like I said, you guys.
I called that on the show 3 weeks ago, if you remember, Mike, when I was speaking with Gal.
That's right. I'll go to you. You're right. Now I think about it, you're right. I'll go to you, Bo. Since you was the first one I saw who talked about this over at Three Kings, and then you can follow up, Gus.
Well, as far as them letting Vasily Lomachenko fight for that WBC vacant belt?
Yeah, over Haney, who's going to fight, I think, next month. Mm-hmm. And then the ball rolls with there in terms of him and a shot at the WBC belt.
Yeah, see, there's a lot here with that, right? First off, the normal rules are whenever there's a vacant belt, the top two guys will fight. And Eddie Hearns was hoping because the guy that's ranked number 2 was going to be doing Ramadan, would be unavailable, that he could get Devin Haney to fight Luke Campbell. But at the same time, you can't be mad at WBC looking at a guy like Vasily Lomachenko. And then, of course, everything comes down to money, okay? And that's just what it is. It comes down to money. Vasily Lomachenko is, whoever you talk to, number 1, number 2 pound for pound. He's more recognizable than everybody in that division right now. So if he says, well, hey, I want to fight for, because that's a vacant belt, which I wish all the champions would do. I've always said that, I wish a lot of these champions would do that. If a belt become vacant, say, hey man, who's number 1? I want to fight him for that, for that title. But I can't get mad at Vasily Lomachenko for saying, okay, listen, I want to fight for that title and lock that up, because what you're seeing right now is Bob Arum is with Vasily Lomachenko. Then he's gearing Teofimo Lopez towards a Richard Commey fight. He's gearing to lock up the 135 pound division right now. But I actually like this move by Vasily Lomachenko. I can't necessarily say that I'm disappointed or angry with the WBC, but I can say it's to be expected by them, because the WBC is the most prestigious belt in all of boxing. And although Mikey Garcia made a deal with them, I was one who wanted to see him fight Vasily Lomachenko, but I knew once he went to 147, I said, that's it. He's not going to want to put his body through that hill to get it back down. So I think it's a smart move on their part. And now and then also the WBC announced a tournament for the eliminator. And I think that's also smart because now you're giving all these guys a chance to, okay, you want to fight for the belt, go through this gauntlet. Yeah, I know where you ranked at, but that doesn't matter. Go through the gauntlet. And I actually kind of like that because a lot of times we do get situations where you be like, yo, where'd this guy come from? You know, like COVID, like the guy that Fury is about to fight ranked number, like somebody had to tell me this guy was ranked number 2. I'm like, the hell did he do to be ranked number 2? So I kind of like this move is like, okay, we're going to have another champion fight for our vacant belt. And then the rest of you guys go through the gauntlet to figure out, you know, who the eliminator is. It's a move that I actually think that they should have did even with the heavyweight division. Although I will, to this day, I will always say they've been fucking with Dillian White forever. For 2 years, they've been fucking with him.
That's a damn shame what they're doing to Dillian White.
Man,
damn shame.
It's a crying damn shame. Like if Deontay Wilder was to say, you know what, fuck Dominic Breazeale, I'm fighting Dillian White, I would not be angry because he's really supposed to do that. But I like the move. I have to say I really like this move. It's a surprising move on their part, but I can't be mad at this. I actually like this move because now what you're saying is, I mean, I would wish the WBC would be more consistent in making moves like this, but I definitely will say that now what you're saying is, okay, we're going to put it on. We're going to have another champion fight for our belt. And then the rest of you guys, you know, go through the gauntlet to really prove who is the number 1 contender.
I see GM Strong is talking about the WBC may be the most questionable organization out there today. No, sir. No, sir. No disrespect, but there's no organization
WBA
is more problematic than the WBA.
Man, y'all beat me to it. You still got Bivol is the regular champion. He's not even the super champion. He's a regular champion.
I can not like.
I mean, the WBA. What's your favorite word that starts with an F, Daniel?
Fuckery.
That's them.
Yeah.
So
that is the fuckery with the WBA. Like, okay, yes, the WBC has its own special type of fuckery, but the WBA is in its own league. Like, for God's sake, they still owe Fresequendo a fight. Think about that. They're still legally mandated to owe Fresequendo a heavyweight title fight.
AARP fight, AARP heavyweight fight. Fresequendo still is the
Didn't Bo
only
get to
title
spar
shot
with Fresequendo?
You know, the funny thing is, I know Frez from we've been in this. I knew Frez back when, you know, he had hair on his head and, you know, was still running around. He got into boxing because he had some nice looking sisters.
But yeah, continue on with the issue of Loma and Campbell fighting at WBC. I think it was Daniel. You can follow Gus.
All right. Well, it's an interesting move. Like, I do like the move a little bit because if you think about it in a way, that's been the trajectory that the WBC has won. WBC has wanted Vasily Lomachenko in that lightweight picture, whether it was against Mikey or now with Luke Campbell. So I technically like the move, particularly because because even if it was against Luke Campbell, and as much as I like Devin Haney, he may not be quite ready yet for a title shot. And let's face it, despite the fact that Linares technically won, Luke Campbell more than proved himself in that title fight. So I would probably say it's a good move. I feel bad for Campbell in a way, though, because, okay, you're going from possibly having a real good chance of winning against a guy like Devin Haney to you probably absolutely have no shot of winning against Lomachenko. But you'll be able to say that you went against two of the best lightweights in the world in their era.
Your thoughts on this, Gus?
You know, Mike.
Because when we was talking Crawler and Loma, yes, that's when you were mentioning it. Yes.
Yeah, I sort of knew that this fight would come around, but you know, Bo made a lot of excellent points, and I agree with him almost in the entirety. But who was it? GM Strong, who talked about the WBC perhaps being the worst. Now there is a dichotomy with the WBC on the one hand to rank a champion, I've got no problem with that, because if the ultimate aim is to fight the best at the division, and we all get a little bit frustrated with the defragmented belts and not enough disputed, then, you know, if Vasily is universally recognized as number one at lightweight, then I've got no problem with that at all. Because Mikey Garcia clearly did not want this fight, but the WBC have said to him, you know, we'll give you an emeritus situation. We know that anytime Mikey Garcia fancies a cash out, you know, we know we're here for you. You can come back. We know you made $8 million for your last fights. So, you know, we'll just take the 15% sanctioning off your $8 million anytime you want to fight Vasily in the future. So they're as fucked up just as the WBA, no doubt about it. And I've done investigations on them in the past that I haven't actually disclosed, Mike, regarding the what, you know, some of their facilitation payments in casinos in the Far East, etc. So there's a lot that people don't know about the WBC, but I think they're the worst, personally. But anyway, regarding the fight, I think, Mike, it's not a bad fight. It's a fight that I thought about when Luke Campbell was even turning over a professional. I think he's long enough, and I think he's a very good classical and skillful boxer to give Vasily some problems in the fight. It's not a foregone conclusion. For as long as the fight lasts, I think he'll do a hell of a lot better than Crawler. And, you know, I heard him in the radio interview just yesterday. He's got no problem with the fight. He was actually, all right, you know, maybe Eddie Hearn was looking for a soft touch with him fighting for a vacant belt, but, you know, Luke Campbell he's not really fazed by it. He's happy to embrace the challenge because he's got a chip on his shoulder as well, Mike. He was one of the best amateurs. If you look at his record in the amateurs, Mike, not many defeats. A very, very good amateur, you know, both in the World Championships and in the Olympic Games. So he always thinks of himself as the best. That's his chip on his shoulder, his personal perception. So if it's about fighting the best to be the best, then so be it. You know, that's what's presented before him, and he's going to take it. And I think he does have some skills, Mike, and I think he definitely has the length, and the fight will be in the UK. The question is where. Maybe the O2 Arena, but, you know, ideally Luke wants it at Hull on an outdoor stadium, so maybe he can get some momentum for the fight. But I personally, Mike, I really like this fight.
Yeah, Hull, outdoors and O2, those are the two destinations I'm hearing right now early on, and I agree with you. Of the lot at 135 pounds, I know you got Comey, you got Teofimo, who I'll say it again, I don't think he's done enough to earn a shot with Loma. In spite of his talent, he just hasn't done enough to earn the shot. Look, Campbell, he would do much better than Crawler. I think Campbell has improved significantly since the Linares fight, which he gave Linares a tough go. Height, length, I would make Loma the favorite, no doubt. But, you know, of the other fighters out there, give Campbell a shot. He's done enough to earn it. He deserves it. Let him have his try. And, you know, he's a skilled guy who has power and who has incentive. He's highly motivated. So, yeah, I'm not mad at it. I'll go to you, Jacob. Your thoughts on this, last word on this, and wrap up this conversation.
No, I like this fight. I think Campbell's a tough guy. And I mean, it's better than the Crawler fight. And like you said before, you know, Lopez, I would like to see the fight because I'd rather see him, you know, Lomachenko fight a Lopez. I mean, fight a Lopez than a Crawler, or fight a Campbell than a Crawler. And, you know, he already fought Linares, and, you know, Mikey Garcia, you know, I think Bo hit it on the head. You know, it's going to be tough for him to, after going up and weight so much, to get back down, and just the, you know, if he doesn't have to and there's money in other spots, then, you know, what's the point? So I like this fight a lot.
GM Strong asked the question here: what other instances that the WBC has mandated other champions from one organization to fight for their belt in the past? Anybody want to tackle that question right quick?
Did you guys already say Kovalev and
Kovalev, Stevenson, Pacquiao, Mayweather?
Yeah.
Those are just the two most recent ones.
Mm. He also says, great that Aram and Hurd can work together. Campbell is a winner in this situation because he probably will receive his highest earnings to date. Yeah, true. Highest earnings to date, high pro bout. He's bringing Loma to the UK, so he'll have home field advantage, if you will. So yeah, he will win. I think he will lose to Loma, but again, give him a shot. He's earned it. Let's go to this, and this is a lot to unwrap here regarding Deontay Wilder. Whoever wants to tackle this,
let me go first
because let me say this before we get the conversation. You hire PR people for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you hire PR people is sometimes to protect fighters from themselves who don't know how to all the time articulate what they are trying to convey. You see it in other sports, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, tennis. They have people there who can either speak for the fighters or release press statements, basically trying to, again, convey what fighters are really trying to say, try to not put it in a nice, neat package so it will not cause that much controversy. Wilder, I've defended him in the past. I don't like the fact that he's constantly chastised for basically being black and Southern by some folks in boxing circles because of his dialect. As a Southern brother myself, I'm a bit sensitive to that. However, I cannot defend his recent comments. You want to start the conversation, but let's begin. Let's go.
Yeah, because
it makes no sense at all for him to say that he's not interested in a Joshua fight in 2019. It makes even less sense for him to say he's not interested in a Joshua fight in 2019, even if he gets the 50-50 option that he's been clamoring for the last year. Again, boxers need PR. Deontay Wilder needs PR. Bo.
Well, Mike, the thing is, Deontay Wilder is trying to play a villain, and he's doing a horrible job as a villain. Have you seen his tweet? Happy Ramadan to my Muslims.
Again, boxers need PR to control what they say and sometimes what they tweet.
Yeah, I'm eating the grill and cheese and hashtag doing all day. Like
don't sit there and use a bomb reference given the sensitivities in terms of what Muslims are facing, particularly in this country and around the world.
Yeah, but it's more than that, Mike. It's like it's not even PR people. Deontay needs to be roped in. I mean, I seriously roped in because outside of him making that comment isn't what bothered me. What bothered me was the comment when he said Josh was running out of options. He has no place to go. No, he has 3 belts with contenders. You have no fucking place to go. You got 1 belt. Joshua has 3 options with 3 mandatories and 3 guys ranked in the top 5. You are the one that have no place to go. So it's not like this is something that we didn't already know. His JDs and them already came out and said, listen, we have a lineup for Joshua. It's going to be Vergil, Adam Kanaki, and then Luis Ortiz. So we already knew that. But as a fighter, you don't come out and say, even if they give you what you asking for. So if the narrative is nobody, you already got all the people that don't like you. You already got everybody believing that, man, listen, you shucking and jabbing, you BSing. You just added, you already had fire on you and you just poured more gasoline on yourself. And the sad part is just when people wanted to probably give you somewhat of a piece of sympathy because of what happened with Fury, because you was trying to get the rematch with him, he went to ESPN and ducked out. So whatever type of sympathy you could have got, it's all gone now because you pretty much confirmed what everybody felt anyway, which is you're just huffing and puffing, man. You just huffing and puffing. And the reality is, if you just said You killed any possibility of a negotiation. So even if we give you 50-50, you're done. Even if you give you 50-50, you're not gonna take the fight. That was stupid. It was stupid for him to do. And whatever point he was trying to make behind it, I don't get it. I won't get it. I don't care how anybody explains it to me, because your highest payday, your biggest purse, you've been telling everybody who can listen how you want this dude. You're saying stuff like you want a body. You saying all these things about how bad you want this dude, how much you want to get at him and all that. Then you come out and say something like this. It was moronic. And there's nothing you can do to defend that. And I've said this even going back to when you listen to him, he has a problem trying to eloquate what he's trying to say, from like he has a problem trying to get his thoughts across in a manner that's understandable to us.
The issue of articulation.
Right, that exactly. Articulation. He has a problem articulating himself, because he says things and it's like, you couldn't possibly have meant that the way that sounded. Now, if he wanted to say, listen, man, these guys ain't gonna fight me to 2020 anyway, so these are the fights I'm gonna have, and you know what, right about now, I'm just gonna go along with these fights. I'm not gonna worry about them. You could say that, but then to sit there and say, I don't care what, man, even if they offer me 50-50, I mean, you guys said y'all weren't gonna fight me to 2020 anyway, right? All right, so even if you offer me what I won't, forget it, I ain't fighting. No, you don't say that. You just don't say that. And for me, and this is why I don't go in boxing groups and I don't do arguments with people, because what the terminology is now is, if people want to call this a duck, okay, I'm not going to argue with them. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. Why should I? Even though I knew that it wasn't going to happen anyway, but I'm not going to argue with you. Why should I argue with you? Okay, for those who always wanted to get on AJ about, you know, the whole 50 million thing, well, Wilder just turned down 100 million, and he's also saying we give him what he want to give him. He's not going to take the fight, so we can't say anything about that no more. So this goes beyond having PR people. Wilder needs to be roped in. You're starting to believe into something too much, so that it's starting to become a detriment to possibly your career.
He's got 3 managers, Bo. I mean, how, if they can't rope him in?
Well, he has people that don't even like. I like the concept that Heyman and PBC tries to have. What I don't like, you don't give guys free reign, period, over everything. You can't do when someone's never done nothing before, never had nothing before. That's like giving a 17-year-old $20 million. You know goddamn well he's not going to be able to contain himself. He's going to blow it and do some wild things. So he has people that don't even know how to rope him in, don't even try. And to your point, Gus, and you're right. He's got people, you know, he's got people that's giving him free reign. And he's buying, because they're giving him that free reign, he's buying into the whole hype of who I am. And he's doing things and saying things without giving it a thought process, because he has free reign. Like, there's no way you tweet, you spell the word Muslims wrong, but then you put the bomb squad thing right on the tweet with Muslims. That's, you don't, like, if there's, who would do that without having a thought process? See what I'm saying? You know, I mean, you were better off not even mentioning it, and that would have been better. You know, or just say, hey, happy Ramadan to all my Ramadan fans. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I see Scorsese as Jordan. We're going to get him in the conversation as well. And not only just the issue of articulation and it's essentially got too many people trying to run shit in his camp. Narrative. Sometimes it's about who controls the narrative.
Mike, the car is driving and there's nobody behind the wheel. Yeah. And that's what we have. Yeah, the car is going down the road and there's nobody behind the motherfucking wheel.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Thank you for that. Again, narrative. Sometimes who controls the narrative controls everything. For a lot of people, when they discuss the possibility of Wilder, AJ Wilder, Wilder controlled the narrative based off the $50 million comments of Joshua. He took all that away, to your earlier point, Bo, with these comments. So now, doesn't matter what AJ said in the past, is what have you said lately? This is going to be the last impression on folks' mind. And in the era of 24-hour media, of social media, people will take this and run with it. I know you was going to say something, Gus. Also, Daniel, Jacob, and Lowe. If you got something to say, please do.
I'll just reiterate what Daniel said in the hangout chat. Wilder, like it's a yawn topic at this point. Um, his, you know, he doesn't care, and you can't ask a person that doesn't care to be rational. He's made his bed. He's fine with sleeping in it. AJ has 3 belts. He has one. Um, I mean that. I mean, I'm not the biggest belt count person, but in this situation, is actually telling the truth. Like AJ's went out and got a career. Wilder's, best thing for me with Deontay Wilder right now, if you're gonna be this kind of villain, is just root for not Bermain Stavern, but Dominic Brazil. And I actually think if Dominic Brazil come to fight, he can rid us of all these comments, and you just point the finger at Wilder and look at people, tell people to look at him at what not to be like, and we just go from there.
Daniel, Jacob, Gus, your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, this involves more in a PR team. Like, you can hire a PR team and still, that PR team will pretty much do what you pay them to do. This is what happens when you don't have a normal infrastructure as far as the boxing and as far as the business. Like from some point you can admire what Al is trying to do. At the same time, though, you need to have an actual promoter, because an actual promoter will look out not only for your interest in the way he'll look out for the promotion's interest. And right now, to put it bluntly in Southern terms, in good old Miami terms, Wilder just took any good faith that he had against Joshua and emptied 2 banana clips to it. Because it is true. So what have you done for me lately type of world? It doesn't matter that the Zone tried to get a fight with Joshua. And the Zone wasn't the one that was able to produce Joshua. It doesn't matter that you had the much more highlighted fight when it came to recent memory with Tyson Fury. It doesn't matter. Because right now, you just stated that you are not open to negotiating anything for up to 2 years. And that doesn't work, because like Bo mentioned, Joshua has 3 belts, so he has 3 options. Now, granted, some of those people will shoot themselves in the foot. Like even if he had a deal to fight with, like I said, to fight with Wilder, Luis Ortiz should have still taken that shot with Joshua, because then if by any chance he would have beaten Joshua, that rematch with Wilder just becomes even better. But that's just the whole issue, unfortunately, with Wilder. You can't let a fighter who has already made some pretty bad comments before do this, because at the end of the day, you're gonna be fighting your group of people. Joshua's gonna be fighting his group of people, and it's never gonna look like you want to meet. And it doesn't matter if it's Eddie Hearn's team that could be blocking on one end. It doesn't matter if it's Al Heyman trying to block it on one end. At the end of the day, the words come out of your mouth. And the words that came out of your mouth pretty much said you were closed negotiations for up to 2 years. It doesn't matter if you already have 3 fights lined up with Brazil, Golovkin, and then Ortiz. If anything, you should put Ortiz in front of Golovkin at the moment. So, like, at some point, somebody that has some sense with Wilder has to sit down with his entire camp and pretty much try to get half of them fired. And then actually hire actual business people to work this out because at the end of the day, all Wilder's doing right now is burning himself at the stake. And for what?
Your thoughts on this, Gus?
Oh
Gus.
my!
Oh, I thought he left.
Nah, it was both that left.
Oh
Both
yeah,
from
I was about to say Gus had enough of Wilder.
both from Truth and Fact Sports and Three Kings Boxing. Yeah, he had to dip out earlier, and I want to thank him for joining us on the show. But yeah, Gus, if you want to add more, Low, please do, because again, narratives, man, controls the narratives, PR. This is a bad job from Team Wilder. It was a bad job from saying it. Even if he said it, they should have found a way to not have this leak out to the press, to the media, to folks. It's dumb.
Yeah, remember, Mike. I mean, the biggest problem with boxers in this day and age is on social media. Even Joshua has made comments, inflammatory comments, not only against fighters, but he's talked about the class system as well. So they're all guilty of it to a certain extent. Although Joshua's maybe his social activities are a little bit more regulated and moderated. I think there are sort of tighter reins on it. There's better PR, it appears, but with Wilder, Mike, he's effectively been self-promoting himself because the PBC have done a piss poor job in promoting his career, and for all of the pipe bombs and all of the the clusterfuck of comments that he's just sort of posted out, there's still so much sufficient interest in him as a fighter. There's always that demand as well. So, but you made an excellent point, and I think it's right, Mike. What one step forward, two step backwards, and the latest comments are going to supersede whatever has transpired in the past. For people who may have had some sympathy with him in those failed negotiations, whatever the truth is, and nobody externally is really going to know what sort of happened. I mean, there was so much information, percentages, this, that, whatever. It's just all, it's irrelevant to the boxing fan that just wants to see the fight. But we know it's, the fights of this sort of magnitude between sort of $200-300 million, there's always going to be, procrastinations and problems in negotiations and all that bullshit. So, yeah, it is going to supersede that to a certain extent, but it wasn't predictable, Mike. We talked about Luis Ortiz last week, innit? That that he's going to hold out for the Wilder fight, and we see it happening now. So, I really couldn't give a fuck about the heavyweight division anymore now.
Anybody else want to? Well, let me read one more comment in the chat from GM Strong. He says the one thing Wilder has done is bolster up his profile. He said at one point he was offered 12 mil. Now he's being offered 100 mil. Joshua has given in to some of Wilder's demands on that front. Reaction to that.
I've recently took a different stance at Wilder, and I realized the more I say the name, the more I gave him what he wanted. He wanted to be the A side. He wanted to be the equal without actually doing it. And it's just, I think the stance at this point is he actually has more than three. My stance is he actually has more than three managers. Every time we pub him up, we're helping. We're the publicists, good or bad. Like Floyd Mayweather would say this: good or bad, you got my name in your mouth, and that's gonna mean something. He's taking his one belt, and Eddie Hearn has basically come out and said he might just get 50-50. That the fight is that big to them. I mean, it is seems completely unfair to a lot of fighters out here doing great things that have done more and everything like that. But hey, life tends to be that way, and Wilder just put himself in a position of, unbearable in a way, but still breaking all the chains that you see. All the chains around him, he's seeming to break it. Only thing that can stop it right now is a performance in the ring, other than a performance in the ring by somebody just fighting him that topples him over. And like I said, I think Brazil got the shot to do that if he fights the correct way. Wilder's vulnerable. We all know that. And I'm kind of, I mean, I don't want to seem like a hater, but I just don't like impurities like that. I don't like the behavior. I don't like the system he's built to try to get to where he's going. So I'm rooting for Brazil, and I'm rooting for anything that's the opposite of what he's been showing lately.
Unless Brazil fights out of his mind coming up, I just don't see that. But from an optics perspective, media wise, Wilder is losing. He's losing in this race when it comes to Joshua. And he and his
But is
team.
he racing, Mike? Like, is he participating? Like, is he saying I want to be better than Joshua? Is he really that guy? Is he just the paycheck Wilder?
The fact that he's asking for he was asking for 50-50. The fact that he's asking to be equal, if not a side. Yes, he is. You don't talk that way if you don't think if he doesn't think he's in that race.
Yeah, that's the thing about Wilder. He does have a genuine belief in himself. So he's always going to be. He's not just going to be in it there for the check. The problem though is, and I understand the comments saying like, yeah, like his name is coming up and he's gotten there, but there's such a thing as the law of diminishing returns, and he can initiate that law any minute when it comes to those comments, because at some point, if you say this and then you start trying to talk about Joshua, people will stop believing you. People will just say you're just talking out your mouth, and that may be starting pretty soon. So, yes, he's built himself up to the point where paying him only $10 million is not justified anymore in a fight with Joshua. At the same time, though, you can always drop back down with a few comments or a loss. So he has to be wise. Somebody in his team has to be wise enough to say, don't burn any bridge that you haven't even crossed yet.
And what does Joshua do in the immediate aftermath when asked about it? He just basically says, "I'm tired of this. This is nonsense. Let's make the fight happen." So,
but you know, Mike, DAZN are actually confident that they can still broker the fight. They're saying they actually had when John Skipper was doing the meeting sort of independently of Eddie Hearn, just with the Wilder representatives. He felt that that the discussions were still positive and they can still resurrect the fight. There's too much money on the table, Mike. He's not going to turn it down. His managers know that they're going to have to cash him out eventually. He's on the wrong side of 30. I don't think I think he's broken his hand too much as well, Mike. He doesn't have a lot of time, Mike. And Daniel's definitely right about the diminishing returns. I think if there's a serious proposition early part of the year, people realize that this is potentially a $200 million fight. It is a big fight. If they've been offering him 15, 20, 30, Wilder knows he can get 50, 60, up to 100. And I think that's what he's eventually holding out for. So once there is a serious proposition that, yeah, look, 60 mil each, something like that, he'll take the fight, Mike. I have no doubt.
indeed, let's move on to talk about some fights here. 3 fights I want to focus on. 2 of them on ESPN. Miguel Berchelt fighting Francisco Vargas on the under. That's a rematch of a fight in which Berchelt beat Vargas to win the WBC belt at 130 pounds. On the undercard of that rematch between Emanuel Navarrete and Isaac Dogboe. Navarrete upset Dogboe last December to win WBO title at 122 pounds. I want to start with Berchelt and Vargas. I want to go to you, Lo. Your thoughts on this bout? For me, Berchelt, he's in his prime. I think Vargas is just a product of a guy who's taking too much punishment. It's just simple as that. I think Berchelt not only wins the rematch, he wins it in more emphatic fashion. Your thoughts?
For some reason, I haven't seen Vargas. I know he KO'd Salka. I didn't see that fight, and I think it's a fight before that or after that he was in. And I think it's just simple right now. He's beat him once, you know what I mean? And some of that punishment he already took come from the same guy that he's about to fight. That's sort of like well, maybe not the same. I was gonna say Jarrett Hurd, Tony Harrison, maybe not the same. Probably nowhere near the same actually. But yeah, like this dude already took the punishment at the hands of this guy. Berchelt can punch at the division. He's open himself, but I think Vargas he'll land his shots, but 4 or 5 rounds in, maybe too much punishment on the face, like you say, much too much wear and tear. Um, it'll be a fun fight. Um, not too much technical to break down. It's not too much technicalities to break down. It's just simple, like you said before you even asked the question. One guy, even though he took punishment in his last fight, Berchelt, he's still fresher than Vargas, and I don't really know why this fight is happening, other than the fact that I guess maybe they're out west and they can sell well. But yeah, it should be an easy defense for Berchelt.
I go to the rest of the panel here. Your thoughts on the rematch between Berchelt and Francisco Vargas. Let me add in. Fight is going to be on ESPN in Tucson, Arizona.
Well, it'll be an interesting rematch when it comes to the leads, because we know what condition Vargas came in when he fought Berchelt the first time, after going through the wars he went through. They say with Miura and Salido. Yeah. So he's had time to rest. He's had time to heal. At the same time, you have a Berchelt who's coming off an injury to his hand. So maybe that may balance itself out, because one thing we know about Vargas, he's a very skilled puncher, and he's a pretty accurate puncher when you give him a chance. So that'll be an interesting fight in the sense, but I still have a feeling, unfortunately, that no matter the rest, I think Berchelt's going to reach at a point where he's going to be too strong, too young, and he'll ultimately probably win out. It'll probably be the same result as the first fight. The only difference is going to be that Vargas will probably give a much better valiant effort than the first fight.
Jacob, Gus, your thoughts on the fight?
I think Berchelt is just skill-wise. I just think that he's a better boxer than Vargas. Vargas, he's got a lot of heart and he's a tough guy. I just don't think that he has the skill set that I think that Berchelt has showed, that he can brawl if he wants to, but he can also box and use his whether it's footwork or different skills that he brings to the table. So I don't think that Vargas, we're going to see the Vargas of old. I think it's, he is a kind of a broken down fighter. He's had, a little bit too many wars, and, probably we wouldn't even really know much about him if he didn't win that fight of the year against Miura. If Miura had stopped him or whatever, then, we probably wouldn't know that much about him. So I think he just has limited skill. He's a tough kid, and he puts on great fights, but he just has limited skill. So I think Berchelt will take this.
A quick question. What was the first fight like? They had close cards, but it was actually wide before the stoppage.
I will have to look it up. I can't remember the cards right now. I can't remember it right now, offhand.
It was I'll tell you right now.
It was a pretty dominant performance, though, all throughout. Is what that's what I remember, right? It wasn't, but I do remember the close cards. I'm just trying to see, was there any success that he was having? Do y'all remember any success that he was having?
Yeah, this is what I was going to go on to. I vehemently disagree with the widespread perception that it was a one-sided beatdown stroke destruction.
It was 96, 94 on 2 cards, 95, 95 on 1 card at the time of stoppage.
I don't know about the 95, 95, but see, look, and there was technical aspects that Francisco Vargas is a very good straight puncher. He has a very good jab, straight right hand. Now, early on in the fight, Vargas was actually getting the better of Berchelt because he was targeting the body very well. With straight punches, not hook into the body, but straight punches. But Berchelt made an adjustment during the fight, and his corners was telling him, "Look, start moving laterally, pivot off to your left, so you can so you can negate his straight right hand." And it was working well. Vargas couldn't really deal with overextending his left hand, but Berchelt with the shorter punches, because he was moving, he was able to pivot off and hit him to the body consistently with that left hook, then come up top with the straight right hand, and then some combinations to the body as well. So the adjustments he made was very good in the fight. But you're right as well, Mike. It's the case of the Milan Melendo scenario. Too much
Yeah,
scar tissue damage,
yeah,
and Berchelt is heavy-handed enough for those injuries just to resurface. That's going to be my worry in the fight. He couldn't see in the latter part of the fight, and there were several instances where you could see that, particularly Berchelt's right hand, because his right eye was so badly fucked up. He just could not see that right hand. So that's my worry for the fight. Vargas' career has been poorly managed, Mike. You remember Takashi Miura? He took over a year off after the Vargas defeat before he went back in the ring with Rahman. So his promoters knew how to say that, look, you took a concussive beating in that fight. We're going to have to extend your recuperation. But with Vargas, they've just been putting him in, one dog after another, and they've effectively killed off his career. Not giving him sufficiently time to heal. An injury like that, and the surgery that he's repeatedly needed. He needed at least a year and a half for the skin, sufficient plastic surgery for it to repair, properly, if it even could. So very unfortunate, Mike. A fighter I've loved since the amateur, and a great fighter for however long the fight lasts, Mike. I think he'll go out on his shield for whatever 4, 5, 6 rounds.
yeah. On the undercard, as I mentioned earlier, Emanuel Navarrete is going to fight Isaac Dogboe in a rematch. I'm going around the panel here. Here's the simple question. Navarrete, it wasn't just skilled, but he just overpowered Isaac Dogboe in that first fight to the point where a more kind judge would have stopped the fight, given how Dogboe was looking, particularly in that 11th round. Can Dogboe, the fighter, and his team come up with something from a technical standpoint to overcome the physicality, the strength, and the power that Navarrete brings to the table, particularly at 122 pounds? He's a big guy at that weight. No. If he can, he has a chance. If he can't, he will get knocked out sooner. That's the question for here in the panel. Who wants to tackle it?
I picked the fight right going into it, like the first one. I went and watched Navarrete, and I said, yo, this my guy. I like Dogboe. I like him, but he's technically flawed. He got too much heart for his own good, and this Navarrete guy was throwing punches from all kind of angles. He was strong. He wasn't backing down from anything in the fights I was watching, and a little bit of technical ability as well to get himself in the right positions to land his shots. And I mean, I didn't think I seen the kind of power that I seen going into the fight, that we saw in the fight with Dogboe. But some was just that Dogboe could just take a tap on the head. Next thing you know, he was discombobulated. And I forget his young age, but a young fighter to take punishment like that and to jump right back in the ring with the same guy, no difference in trainer, no long rest period, nothing different to me. I mean, I just don't feel like there's nothing in this short amount of time that could change what we almost saw. Some people, we watching this fight with a group of people, and they're saying, yo, take him out of there for something bad happened to him. Like,
yeah, well, I was watching it with you that night on Low.
Yeah, sad night that people are saying it's the 11th or 12th round. Don't send him back out there. Like, no, this is not. It just didn't look right. It looked like the guy was headed toward a deathbed, and that was a bad beating. this is the weekend of redemption for 3 different champions that got their belt took, and he has the biggest uphill battle in my opinion. I guess Vargas does, but at the same time, Vargas is supposed to be done. This wasn't supposed to happen to Dogboe, so
Hmm.
I'm rolling with Navarrete. It just look, you got that kind of confidence. He had to be doing something completely wrong in life to come in here and lose a rematch after you do something to a guy like that. It's just it just is the top level of it right there. That you don't got to dig no deeper than that. He had to be completely in the wrong during training camps during this break to come in here and not put on a performance to where it just says, okay, Dogboe, we really got to rethink the career of Dogboe.
For everybody else here in the chat, your answer to the question I propose.
I'm going Dogboe. I think that he.
Oh, okay.
I actually do think that he knows that he didn't fight the right fight that night. I think he recognizes that, and he did take a beating. But he's still, it's not like he's been taking beatings for like a long time. I think there's a difference between, and there are some there are some examples where, someone could take a one fight beating and you're never the same. But I think he recognizes that Navarrete is bigger than him, and that he can't just stay in the pocket and go toe to toe with him. That he's gonna try to basically hunt him down. So he's going to use a different strategy to try to win this fight. And I do think he's one of those fighters that has a lot of belief in himself, and that he can basically adjust. As long as he doesn't, I think in the first fight he just got hurt early on, and he never really seemed to recover. So I think he can pull this out.
Gus, Daniel, your thoughts?
Mike, as a serious speculator, yeah, the equation that I've had in my mind when thinking about the outcome of this fight, and it's been bugging me for several months now, is this, yeah. It's stylistic nightmare plus fundamental flaws. And when it comes to Dogboe, we know that he has no defense and he loves with his punches. And that's when Navarrete was able to even open up with short uppercuts. He was aware of that. Is that part of the equation equal to, greater than, or less than Isaac's problems in the first fight? And they were, number one, underestimating his opponent, plus 2, poor conditioning. Now, when you try and reconcile that sort of equation, I'm thinking, well, how is Isaac going to remediate his deficiencies? Yeah. Okay, I accept that he underestimated his opponent. All right. He may have cut corners in training, whatever. He may not have been the best conditioned fighter. But were those such vital components in the way he got beaten up? And bringing on board a nutritionist, is that going to make him, significantly better going into this fight? I can't see that, Mike. Look, fighters, not all fighters can recover from a beating straight away in the rematch. Now, Sergey Kovalev was able to do it, but he transitioned into a different sort of boxer, realizing that his power may not be as such, but he went with a new trainer, went back to boxing, so there was merit in that. But with Isaac, he's still with Paul Dogboe. I just thought they blow too much smoke up his arse, Mike. They think that he's an offensive juggernaut, not enough attention on defense. But Navarrete is a stylistic nightmare because not only does he have the length, but he's able just to every time Dogboe is trying to come inside, slip inside the jab to get on his chest to unloaded combinations, Navarrete is able to extend that distance to keep it at long range. He's wise enough to do that. So how is Dogboe going to circumvent that jab and get inside when he's got no defense, when he's trying to cut that distance to come inside? So they are fundamental problems, Mike. Now, I don't know whether Paul, his father and his trainer, is going to address them given the sufficient time. I think they're just focusing on the nutritional, on his conditioning aspect, Mike. I don't think that's going to make much difference.
He needs to
show.
he needs to deconstruct and reconstruct himself from a technical standpoint.
Yes, exactly, Mike. And the only way he's going to do that is with a different coach, Mike. Somebody who can go back, and he's young enough. He has the propensity to learn. He's only 23, 24, so he can learn that. He's very heavy-handed fighter, Mike. He's a very good body puncher. So he has those attributes, but he's got to learn defense. He's got to learn how to slip inside. You know, shorter fighters have always given trouble to taller fighters. That relationship over the taller fighters hate fighting shorter fighters.
Yep.
But the shorter fighters have got to have good defense, Mike. They got to have good slip. He doesn't. He's just blocking punches with his face, Mike. And against a fighter who has that ability and is heavy-handed enough, and Navarrete, go back and watch some of his fights against, you know, the Filipino John Jimenez. You know, he can fight in different styles. He can command the center of the ring. He can bounce around his opponents, or he can box at long range. So he's quite a versatile, very underrated fighter as well, Mike. Now, you know, Dogboe, he is the A side. He is the promoted fighter, you know, top rank of feel they've got some upside in him, given his age. But so if it becomes close on the cards, they'll probably give it to him, Mike. But I just think ultimately it's a stylistic nightmare, Mike. And I think Navarrete is going to be astute enough to know he wants to fight on my chest short range. I'm going to have to box, keep it long range, and I'm going to have to keep move as well. And I think that's what he's going to do.
Your thoughts on this, Daniel?
That's the effect of it now, because now Navarrete used the length, he used the reach, and he used the angles when Dogboe got into it. That was the best part about the fight. He didn't just simply try to back away when Dogboe tried to come in. He used the angles to make sure that Dogboe wasn't able to adjust in coming in. So that's one of the best attributes of the fight, and that's what makes it very interesting when it comes to fighters like Dogboe, who have been built up like offensive guys who can ram through people. Some of those guys can recover when faced with a situation where that alone won't get them to win. I don't think hiring a nutritionist is going to help Dogboe in that area. We have to see if he's able to have mentally recovered from it, because what happens if he tries to go on bull rush on the first ring in the first fight and Navarrete just does the same thing again?
Yeah, that is the question.
That is the main question. Like, what's going to happen at that point? Is he going to break down? Is what the face that we saw in the 11th round?
Make that point, Daniel. If nobody else touched on that, I was going to come back to it and say that the way his face busts up, if he goes back there in the first 4 rounds again, like, oh man.
Yeah, like I said, like if we see that face that we saw in the 11th round in the first half of the fight, we know that mentally he wasn't able to break down.
One final fight here before we start to close things down. Jarrett Hurd, WBA IBF junior middleweight title. He's kind of making a return home, if you will. Going to be fighting also on Saturday night, Fairfax, Virginia, fighting against J. Rock Williams, who fought Jamal Charlo a couple of years ago, lost, was stopped. Talked about this before the show, and again, call me crazy here, but I think J. Rock has a much better chance than people are giving him credit for. J. Rock, he's not a bad fighter. He can box. He has a bit of pop. The question is, can he stand up to the physical strength and power of one Jarrett Hurd, who's massive for that weight? If he can outbox Hurd, because as we all know, Jarrett Hurd, he's susceptible defensively. He can be hit and hit a lot. And because Hurd, like I said, because Hurd is so big for the weight, there's always been a question of whether the effort it takes for him to get down to 154 pounds will eventually catch up to him. I'm not going to go all the way and say that J. Rock is going to pull the upset, I'm just giving him a heck of a chance, and I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he actually wins. I'm gonna go around the panel here. Am I wrong for giving J Rock such a strong chance in this fight to pull off the win against Hurd? It's in what is practically Hurd's backyard.
No, I'll flat out say it. No, because I'll go back to the Charlo fight. If it wasn't for that punch, for the uppercut and that jab, you could say before that fight was stopped that J Rock was winning the fight. That he was winning those rounds 3-2 at that point. So he has the skill set to be there. What he has to be make sure is the main thing difference is Jamal actually had a good amount of defense when it came to his fight. So he was able to outbox him for a little bit when it came to setting up those punches before the intro. But J-Rock, for the most part, was winning the fight. We can't say the same thing when it comes to Jarrett Hurd. Jarrett Hurd's plan normally is I'll lead as much punishment as I can until I can land my shot. And when it comes into that fight, when it comes to J-Rock is skilled enough maybe where he knows not to give him a shot. So that's the dangerous part that you have to look into when it comes to this fight if you're Jarrett Hurd. We have to remember that it took that knockdown from Lara for him to win that fight. We don't, and it took Lara fighting much differently than what he normally fights for him to win that. What happens if J-Rock does a different plan and then not only can take Jarrett Hurd's punch, but make sure that he misses the most potent ones of it? So you're not wrong, Mike, in the set, because I'm actually leaning towards that area. I think J-Rock can pull it off. And like I said, and it won't be a loss that won't hurt Jarrett Hurd pretty much if he does lose. It might be something where he builds better on, because if he does, he'll maybe learn a little bit of defense and become more of a complete fighter.
I'll go to you on this one, Lo. There are certain fighters who have a way of making you fight their fight. Last week we talked about Prograis and the way he boxes. He often has a way of controlling the pace and making guys fight at his pace. That's on one hand, which is kind of not the fastest pace. On the other hand, you have a fighter like a Warrington, IBF featherweight champion, who not only intimidates guys, but he has a way of fighting at such a pace that he forces guys to fight faster than they want. Hurd is the same way in that regard, similar to a Warrington, in that he's so big, he's so strong, he's hard to hurt, he's constantly coming forward that he makes guys fight his fight. But again, the question is can J-Rock be disciplined enough to stay calm and composed, knowing that the storm that is Hurd in his fighting style, the storm that Hurd will bring with his fighting style, if he can stay disciplined, if he doesn't fall into traps, if he doesn't get hit with silly shots, I'll keep saying this, he has a more than legit chance. Your thoughts?
I've been flip-flopping on this one because I agree with y'all in spots. But the first thing you said about Jarrett Hurd is he makes you fight his fight, and how he does that, he's one of the best at cutting the ring down. And Lara just didn't change the way he fight. Jarrett Hurd made him say, you gonna throw some punches, or I'm gonna be the only one doing some work. And credit to Lara, he put on his career's best performance, even in a loss. Jarrett Hurd is going to cut that ring on Julian Williams, no doubt. This is a fight I've been paying most attention to. And what we'll see from Julian Williams is he going to go into the holding one arm, trying to work Julian Williams, pull out a decision, or is he going to do like he did versus the Jamaican in the last fight? But I want y'all to understand he had a 15-pound weight advantage nearly 15 pounds over. What was that guy's name? The Jamaican he fought.
Oh, J Rock.
Yeah, J Rock
Nathan
fought the
something.
Jamaican and he damn near stopped him in the 12th round. And that guy Nathaniel Gallimore is his name. He was
Yes, yes.
170 in the ring, and I believe Jarrett Hurd is going to be a 170 plus too. So it's going to be one of the first times where Jarrett Hurd's in there with somebody, you know, probably around the same size, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe. But the issue with J Rock is he fought with demons early in that Gallimore fight. Like third, fourth round, you start to see some, oh shit, can I do this? I got hit in the body. Even though they revealed in the fight he was like 10 to 12 pounds heavier, you still had his trainer saying, you act like you fighting with some demons. Now he came up out of that and started to completely beat the hell out of Nathaniel Gallimore, and basically the fight could have been stopped with the guy on his feet. He's a good inside fighter. He has the hand speed advantage. He can change the level better, but like Hurd said, he does too much right. And what he meant by that is you try to do too much. You know everything, so you try to do everything instead of perfecting what'll get you that win on that night. And he said, why you're doing it. They told him this face to face. Basically, why you're doing that, I'm just gonna be punching you. And this is what we're in for. We're in for a treat. That is a classic battle that we finna see. If J Rock shows up, and we know Hurd gonna show up. Some real crazy got to happen in this universe for Hurd not to show up, not to be able to take punches, not to try to slip a couple, go to the body. You name it. He's gonna be throwing triple left hooks to the body. We know this. He's gonna be throwing uppercut after uppercut. We know this. Now, you know, good for J Rock. He doesn't have to deal with the one punch power of Jamal Charlo, but you still got a guy who can break the people. He break people down with the best of them in the game, and he looked like he wanted to break down in that last fight with a guy he had a 10-pound plus advantage over. So I favor her, but I'm right there with y'all saying I wouldn't be shocked. And not because deficiencies in Hurd, it's just because J Rock's actually a very good fighter. And sometimes it take a loss for you just to mold it out and put it all together, a la Tony Harrison. So we'll see where it go. That's my favorite fight of the weekend for sure.
Yeah, Tony Harrison, who's going to be fighting a rematch against Jamel Charlo. I want to say in June 23rd. Bit of a news break there. I'm gonna go to you guys. Your thoughts on Hurd and J Rock?
Yeah,
Are you
sorry
there,
about that.
Gus?
Yeah, sorry about that. Mike, low place makes a lot of great points. The demons were almost visible, in that Gallimore fight. It was really, when a prospect who is thought of reasonably high, touted as a future world champion, when he suffers a brutal defeat, and I think people place too much emphasis on that Charlo knockout, and it just sort of mars not only his career but the perceptions upon him, but also his own self-confidence as to whether he can take, not only an uppercut like that, but also remember, Charlo gave him a lot of trouble with his jab. I think he may have even floored him with a jab. So
He sure
Yes,
did.
he
He
did.
did.
Yes, he did.
so there's always going to be those skeptics to think that maybe he's just glass-jawed, a skillful fighter. But Gallimore is reasonably heavy-handed, no doubt about it. May not have the best of the resume, but definitely had punching power. And Williams, I was surprised, but when he actually engaged with him on the inside and he was getting the better off him, the hand speed was actually working really well. I said to myself, he was a lot better on the inside than I had, perceived previously. But against Hurd, and Hurd is awkward enough as well. A very strange fighter. His sort of composition in terms of the way he's built can be beautifully silky at times, but on the inside he can be a monster. So some of those exchanges which is going to happen on the inside, it could be mouth watering. But if it turns into a war of attrition, Mike, And if Williams doesn't try and smother, try and block him, extend that, try and block that left hand, actually by applying a grip around, I don't think it's a wise strategy, Mike. He doesn't want to. If it turns into a war of attrition, especially in the second half of the fight, then it's not going to be in J-Rock's favor. I think he's going to have to try and box more. He's going to have to be a lot more slick, especially in the first half of the fight, because Jarrett Hurd's momentum is all about in the second half of the fight. He's like a snowball coming downhill, relentless in that second half. And he's going to just be applying pressure, not only with his length, but his height in terms of the way he cuts distance. So he is applying psychological and physical pressure on you all the time. So it's very draining for a fighter. So J-Rock is going to have to conserve his energy, I think, in the first half of the fight, knowing that it's going to be relentless pressure. And he's going to have to try and outbox him just to try and build up a sufficient lead. But if he tries to engage with him for extended periods in the second half of the fight, I think he's going to get stopped, Mike. So I think he's a decent fighter. I think he's a skillful enough fighter. But I just think Hurd is probably just too big, too strong, too relentless, Mike. And I think he'll have enough for a close enough decision on the cards, but I think Hurd to be a little bit too strong.
I was going to end the show. I'm going back to you, Gus, quickly here. Couple of kind of developments here that's possible in terms of the smaller weight fighters. One, hadn't heard much from Roman Gonzalez, Chocolatito Gonzalez. Word has broke over the past 24 hours that he's interested in a rematch with Juan Francisco Estrada. Your thoughts on that?
No, Caio Estrada, Mike, he's been begging for that rematch for so many years, but it was Gonzalez who was, who was a little bit reticent about the rematch. You remember when Estrada fought him, Mike? Estrada was only 22, if I remember at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Very young. Although it was a fantastic fight, but I felt Roman won the fight, Mike. For me, he definitely won the fight, but Estrada was definitely competitive, but it shows the level Gonzalez was at that time to beat a fighter as skillful as Estrada, but maybe Estrada was a little bit green, so it doesn't surprise me that they want this fight, Mike. It's a big money rematch fight, but I would strongly favor Estrada in the fight, Mike. I think he's now in his, not only his physical, but his prime, both in his ring generalship and his box. I think he's definitely the best Mexican fighter, Mike. I think he's way more skillful than Canelo Alvarez. So I wouldn't be aggrieved with that rematch, but I think I personally, Mike, I would prefer Estrada and a Donny Nietes or Estrada or a Tanaka Estrada and even the Jerwin Ancajas. I think.
Speaking of that, by extension, he was asked about that, and he said, "Yeah, if he wants it, I would be interested in it." But Estrada says what he prefer is a unification bout with Ancajas. Thoughts on that?
I think that's a fantastic fight, Mike. You've got a contrast of styles. You've got a southpaw orthodox fighter, very good hand speed with Ancajas, good angles, very good body puncher, and with Estrada as well, Mike. I think stylistically and in terms of action that's a very good fight. You got Ancajas is still coming into his prime, Mike. I think he realized that he had to, change up his training camp. He went to isolation, went on a military base camp or whatever. So maybe the penny is starting to drop with him. Maybe a little bit fortunate to have retained his belts. I think there's a lot of ability there in him, Mike. There's a lot of skill in there. So I've got no problem with that fight, Mike. I would prefer that over the Gonzalez rematch.
Yeah, I don't want to leave everybody out here. quick word from anybody for everybody else. I'll start with you, Jacob. In terms of Roman saying that now he wants a rematch with Estrada, while Estrada says, "Yeah, I wouldn't be against it, but my preference is a unification bout with Jerwin Ancajas."
I mean, I think that with Ancajas, I think he's one of the weaker links there. So I think Estrada knows that he can beat him, and probably pretty easily. I believe.
I would say you're 5, but I understand your point.
Agreed, Mike.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm saying he's one of the weaker links. I don't disagree with you that Yafai is also weak, but as far as a makeable fight, I think he can get that Ancajas fight, and I think he'll beat him pretty handedly. But he had talked about this kind of rivalry that he had with Chocolatito for a long time. I remember when Chocolatito said he was going to move up. Estrada said, "Well, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. That's where I'm going to go."
Yeah,
because he wanted that fight. So it maybe his priorities have changed since in the sense that maybe unification is more important than this revenge fight. Because I mean, there's a lot of people that think that he won that fight. So kind of what the eyes of the public of what they think can sometimes carry a fighter even if they have that loss on their career.
Not just priority, Jacob. Power dynamic. The reason that the rematch didn't happen initially was because Roman was wanting $1 million for that rematch on HBO. He's not A-side anymore. Lost to Rungvisai twice. He's fought once since, but he's been injured. While Estrada, he fought Rungvisai, high-profile bouts, beat him soundly in a rematch on DAZN. So essentially, he's the A-side now. He can make the demands on whom he wants. He's not chasing anymore. Fighters come to him. So that's what's changed more than anything. While
Yes.
Roman, he's on the comeback.
He's number 1 at 115 now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of the points you have, but again, like we talked about earlier in the show, what's in a fighter's mind and what we know to be true are two different things. Sometimes somebody thinks they're all that and they're the A side and they can dictate all these things, and sometimes they have people that management or whoever is telling them the same thing to confirm that. But really, to everybody else, it's like, well, you don't have any leg to stand on there. This is the champion. He's been consistent. He's been fighting. He beat the guy that didn't just beat you. He knocked you out in the 4th round. I mean, it wasn't that fight was basically non-competitive. So, I would hope to be able to see it one of those fights because I don't think Roman Gonzalez has too much more left on his career. So if they can make that fight, great. I think it'd be a good fight to watch. But I understand where Estrada's coming from too, as far as legacy and beating Roman doesn't really do anything for his. I mean, personally, maybe does something for him, but like as far as boxing, belts and championships and defenses and all that, it doesn't really do anything.
I'll go to you, Lo, and then you can finalize this. Daniel, your thoughts on Roman Gonzalez saying he wants a rematch with Estrada, while Estrada saying, okay, that's an option, but I want unification.
First, I gotta say this: my boy Kit Kat got to be one of the stupidest fighters I ever seen for not going southpaw and handling his business that whole fight. I just can't believe it. That was hard to watch. You know what I mean? That was hard to watch.
That's what happens when you call him Kit Kat, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I almost caught him clip clap after that because all he did was get clipped and clapped all night, man. It's just sad, bro. Like I couldn't believe he did.
It wouldn't have made any difference, though.
Not the way Estrada fought that night.
It did late in the fight. When he turned late in that fight, he was giving him hands. But it's only an opinion.
Yeah, that was because Estrada just stood there, just try to be bravado.
That's what I mean. I think Ancajas being a southpaw. If he can take the shot, and I've seen him struggle in the fight before. I don't know very much about Ancajas, but I know he's strong. But I mean, like Gus said, he's finding himself a little bit. I think Estrada is he's a little bit lost with a southpaw. So maybe Roman would be the right move for. I know for greatness you want to get the titles, but you gotta be honest with yourself. I think Kit Kat give him a little more confidence. If he go back and watch those last couple rounds and he just think about it, he might want to stay the hell away from Ancajas if he's gonna be real strong, real young. And hey man, I'm telling you, that was a bad look for Estrada to dominate that whole fight. See a change in stance, and next thing you know, he was just getting. It looked like Kit Kat could mess around and get the stoppage. But Roman, I'll be glad what's the name do got the belt, because he ain't as violent as Kit Kat on his best night. So if he want
Get
that,
the
so
fuck
be it.
out of here.
We'll get to see it. We'll get to see it. Kit Kat's violent, bro. He violent on his best
Get,
night. He done hurt
no,
Roman
no,
again,
no,
man.
no.
Stretched him out.
Go
But
go back
Estrada's a
and
good
watch.
fighter.
Go back
Estrada's
and
good.
watch Kit
Estrada
Kat.
took his punch, man. Estrada took his punch. You got to give him that.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, he did. He did. I give it. Strauss a good fighter, but I just feel like Kit Kat just kind of let him off the damn hook. You don't go in there with you had so much success in Southpaw the last fight. You tripped him over with that lead foot so much. You even started to do it late, and you never even went to it for 30 complete seconds into the 11th round. So I don't even know if I want to see Kit Kat again after him doing that stupid of a performance.
Wouldn't have
But
mattered. Would not have mattered the way Estrada was on it that night. Wouldn't have mattered. Would not have mattered.
Exactly, man.
but it was good bout. So Estrada moves on. I like y'all said, I do think your five might be the weakest link, but then any given night he could be the best, because when he came over here to the States and I thought he was gonna be just a finesse fight. He was in there with a big old 115 pounder. He was tearing that dude ass up. Can't remember the name, but dude looked like he missed weight 3 times. And your five sat down on some shots, and I said, hey man, it's a little deep division, and it's some flaws in all the fighters, so we'll see where it go.
Let's wrap this conversation up, Daniel, before we start shutting things down.
It is an interesting change, but to think about it, because I do remember Strada saying that he would chase Chocolatito for that fight. However, getting the belt does change your mindset a bit. Finally getting over that championship hump does change your mind a bit. So he may be looking at Arcania saying a credible opponent, and it's probably an easier fight for him to make, because like he's with Zanfer, and Zanfer has a good relationship with Top Rank. And the only other fight would be Yafai, and I don't think Eddie Hearn is dumb enough to put Cal Yafai with Estrada. So in that sense, it's the logical move to make if the move is to unify. And we have to say like Chocolatito's best days have been behind him. Like we've only seen him once after those losses, so we don't know if he really is as back as he is. And after the beatings that he took, Estrada might actually just be able to walk through him. So he may just see it as a situation where I no longer need you. I have to fight, and I have the belt. So in essence, a rematch with you would be pointless.
And I'm going to shut the show down on that note. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. One Media, GM Strong, Fink. I see Jacob. He was in there earlier in the YouTube chat, as well as both from Truth and Fact Sports Talk. Make sure, if you like what you heard, make sure to hit that like button on YouTube, and make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, as well as iTunes and on Spotify. I'm going to go around the panel here. Before I go around the panel here, I want to thank Bo from joining us earlier, Bo from Truth and Fact Sports Talk, as well as Three Kings Boxing, my brethren over at Three Kings Boxing. If you want to talk the sweet science or anything else with him, you can check him out on Twitter at Truth and Fact Sports Talk. That's at Truth TRUTH_FACTBOX1. Once again, at TRUTH Truth_FACTBOX1. I want to thank him for joining us on the show earlier. Going to go around the panel here. It's been a while since you've been on here, Lo. For those who want to talk the sweet science or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Oh hell. Shit, I just,
And I see you finally got your Twitter back. If you
I
could just
just got
remember
a
your.
new Twitter. I didn't know the old one, so I damn sure don't know
I was
this
gonna
one.
say if you can actually remember it this time,
Yeah,
sir.
maybe low place MLPF. Try that. You know what I mean? One word. Just try
That's
that.
what it is. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. And then my YouTube hey, same as my YouTube. And it's one word on Twitter and it's 3 different words on YouTube. But shout out to the Greek Freak sweeping them Celtics up out of here. That's all I got to say.
They're going to the NBA Finals, man. Milwaukee is. I'm just saying they're going to the
Oh
finals.
yeah, it's time.
And you know, if people were not talking about Durant so much, they would talk about Giannis as possibly the best player in the NBA. That's just my opinion. I'll go to you, Gus. For those, I know you stood with us up late over in the overseas, over in the UK. I really appreciate that. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music, because you do write music reviews, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, just like to say respect to everybody on the panel, everybody in the chat. Hello to Gail, Francis, Joe. Haven't spoken to him in a while. Hope
Yeah, let me
everybody's
mention Gail
well.
right quick. Excuse me. She's gonna be out if the show's done on Wednesday. She can't make it then because she has some media obligations for the next couple of months that she more than likely will not be for us for a while. So again, as you said, I follow what you said here at the Pound for Pound Box Report. Shout out to Gail for Community Digital News.
Yeah, yeah. Folks can hit me up on Corruption in Boxing on YouTube. Try and get a little bit more serious. Start putting a lot more videos out as well. So yeah, stay tuned.
I'll go to you, Daniel, from the Inscriber. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, or for those who want to check you out on Twitter, clapping back at nonsense, or talking Game of Thrones, or wrestling, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. Hopefully, I should have the show with Joe and Francis tomorrow night. We weren't able to do it last week. Joe actually lost his voice. I think it's sick. So,
oh wow!
Yeah.
I hope he gets better. Hope he gets better.
Yeah.
Team
So
Lannister, baby. Team Lannister.
Man, look, I just want Danny just to burn everything. That's all I care about.
No.
Yeah.
No. I need Arya to take that old guy's face.
That too, and kill Cersei,
Yes.
Hey, the boss queen. She got the gats all up on the
Man,
on the
look, I just all out. I
Hey,
wouldn't
look.
mind Lannister taking those dude's face and killing Cersei, but given how Missandei died, that was rude.
Yeah,
That was rude, and Danny need to go Killmonger and burn everything.
Oh yeah, and
player,
also
man.
like I said, we got to give a shout out to the Greek Freak like you mentioned. Bucks are in the NBA Finals. Kyrie.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm just saying they're going to the NBA Finals. They're going.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, they got to deal with old Kiwi. They got to deal with Kiwi, man.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, no, because other than Kawhi, we know the Raptors have the tendency to choke. But let's see. And besides that, like I say, we got Greek Freak going on. I will just say this. I know it's a non-boxing one, but do not be surprised if on July 1st, Kyrie bends the knee to LeBron and wears the purple and gold.
Oh man.
Man, Lakers got to get their act together in terms of organization.
Back to the Game of Thrones, man. He said bends the knee.
Low place doing Game of Thrones videos, man. What's
Kyrie
up?
gonna pull a Jamie Lannister head back down in King's Landing.
And I also want to see how the Hound, because you know he's gonna have that battle, the Hound and what's his name, and old dude. So
The Mountain.
Yeah, I want to see that as well. But yeah, Danny, follow our advice. Burn everything. I'm just saying, burn everything.
They dropped Missandei from about 30 feet, man.
Man, look, that like I said, man, that was rude. Bad enough they
Grey Warren found his heart. He said, ugh, he just had to turn away. I said, oh,
Yeah,
man.
no. We'll leave it like this. We'll leave it like this. If Daenerys isn't burning down the place, we know Grey Worm is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because look, it's bad enough that they killed her, but the way they killed old girl, that was effed up. Anyway, Game of Thrones, that's for another chat, another discussion. I'm going to you, Jacob, last but certainly not least. Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing, for those who want to talk the sweet science, as well as movie, as you are a sometimes guest on the Wrong Real movie podcast. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and for having me on the show, and thanks to the panel. Like always, good show, great stuff from everybody. But yeah, I could be found at Twitter, JRATM23, or I should have my episode of the Wrong Reel that I guest hosted on with Mateus out. I think it's if it doesn't come out in the next couple of weeks, look for it pretty soon. But it's on Steven Soderbergh. But you can find that at wrongreel.com.
I'll be looking for them. Yeah.
As I said earlier, if you like what you've heard on YouTube and whatnot, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Subscribe to us on Spotify. Subscribe to us on SoundCloud. For those who want to talk the sweet science or music or fitness with me, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR, at Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said to begin the show, if you want to follow or check out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the place to go to. P4PBoxingReport.wordpress.com is the link. Check the right of the page to find the links to follow us on social media, as well as links to find us on all platforms that carry podcasts, and the 2 links for the donate button. Got a PayPal and a Cash Me links for that. Again, 50 cents, $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can spare. Please shoot some change at Pound for Pound Box Report, because most things are not free, including the production of this podcast. So show a brother some love. Show Pound for Pound Box Report some love. And I don't mention this enough. One, I'm also a writer, a contributor to 3kingsboxing.com, and Beachbody Fitness online app. Link to my coach page there. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Hurd and J-Rock, of Berchelt Vargas rematch, of Navarrete Dogboe rematch, and we will do a preview of Billy Joe Saunders, who we talked about in not so glowing terms earlier today, or earlier on the show. Is he fighting a Sufi again? A Sufi, y'all. He's fighting a guy by the name of Isufi. Really? That's all I got to say about that. He's fighting a guy by the name of Isufi. Joe Joyce is going to be fighting on that undercard. And we will do a preview of Wilder, who we talked about earlier extensively, his fight against Dominic Brazil. Gary Russell's fighting Kiko Martinez on the undercard of that. And last but certainly not least, the World Boxing Super Series Super Lightweight Tournament. Baranchik and Taylor fighting the second semifinal, also the second semifinal of the World Boxing Super Series Bantamweight Tournament. Rodriguez and Inouye. And Gus, I'm hearing that Inouye's making some complaints about the weather. I don't know what that means.
It's crazy, Mike.
Cause for pause about that?
It's May here, and I've still got the heating on, Mike. That's how cold it is.
Wow. Wow.
You shouldn't be complaining, no, you shouldn't be.
But yeah, he arrived today, and I read some reports. Again, he's had some concerns about the weather and about the cold. So I don't know what that means in terms of his fight against Emanuel Rodriguez, which should be a very good matchup. So yeah, for both from Truth and Facts Sports Talk, for Low Place. Again, remember your Twitter handle, bro. That's all I'm going to say to you. Remember your Twitter handle. Remember your Twitter handle, Low. Jacob from Jab Hook, Daniel from the Inscriber. This has been episode 250 of Pound for Pound Box Report. Again, thank One Media, thank Fink, thank everybody else in the YouTube chat who participated, who had their comments. Really appreciate your comments and your questions. I am your host, Michael. Again, episode 250, Pound for Pound Box Report. Everybody have a good evening, good night.
Good night.